The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
Yo, 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 what up? This is Rocky Asuka Romero of Chaos, and you are listening to Keepin It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the ace of podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the ace of podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy, Donovan, and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out in Barrio the Frogs. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review nights 3 through 6 of G1 Climax 32 and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and clicking the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com, with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and share playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit NJPWEXT.us today for details. Young boy, this is the first Keeping It Strong Style with Vince McMahon out of power at World Wrestling Entertainment.
You know what's funny? It was like I was working today and I thought to obviously we're doing the show tonight. So I just thought to myself, like, we're probably going to do the show and not mention this whatsoever. So like, I think it's funny that it's the first thing we didn't talk about. It's the first thing that you brought up. I would literally be fine doing the show without even having to talk about the man. I mean, but I guess it is like big news. So,
Yeah, honestly, the only reason I even really brought it up is we did get a few different questions about it.
Oh, shit.
And it's also like a very big wrestling news. It does kind of impact the whole wrestling world because as much as we don't really watch WWE, that's still the most profitable wrestling company in the world. And a lot of times,
I watched WWE. I watched Raw for an hour last night, and my God, it was so bad. It was so bad. It was soul crushing. Every time I can get through a pay-per-view, that's fine. But every time I turn on their television, it is the definition of soul crushing. I couldn't imagine having to watch that. Like, it's so fucking bad.
Yeah, bro, I can't. Raw, SmackDown, NXT pay-per-views, it's rough. Like, anytime I see clips or anything that's happening there, like, the wrestling is just super slow. The promos are horrible. The storylines are trash. I just don't know how, like, if you like it, more power to you, but I just don't understand how there are 2 million people who watch Raw and SmackDown every week. I don't get it.
I mean, you know what? I'm not going to bury them. Like, if that's what they like, that's what they like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't.
But yeah, so, for those who have been living under a rock, Vince McMahon has retired as the CEO of WWE. He's no longer chairman of the board, no longer in charge of creative. Also, there's been a lot of investigations going around him with him essentially, laundering money or using personal money and company money to pay off women to, have sexual relations with him and then do NDAs, and been this whole big thing. And so yeah, we had a question here from friend of the show, Rich Latta, saying, how about that Vince McMahon?
Yeah, man. I mean, Vince McMahon is a terrible person. And also, like, his vision of pro wrestling is very opposite of what, my fandom is. So, but if just putting all that aside, I mean, like, there's been allegations for years that he's a philanderer, that he's a rapist, that he's a bully. He covered up fucking Jimmy
Murders.
Smith's murder. He had a big role in the negligence that was involved with Owen Hart's death. Him and his wife covered up the ring boy sex scandal. He had a big hand in what was going on with the drug trade in the steroid scandal in the 90s as well. And who knows? And then, yeah, all these other things are coming out now with like they're not coming out. They're just kind of coming to light. They're things that we've sort of known about, with like talents coming to him, talking about they got raped, and then them covering it up and brushing it under so that they don't upset their, partnership with the U.S. military. All sorts of crazy stuff. Like, anybody that you don't even have to be like a super fan. All you have to do is just do a couple Google searches. And it doesn't take very long to find out that this is a horrible, horrible individual. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's funny that there are so many different individuals out there that are like, God bless Vince McMahon. If it wasn't for him, most of you wouldn't have the moments, blah, 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 blah.
Moments.
Yeah. He built this industry. And, this podcast really isn't about all that. And I don't want to dig too deep into it. In fact, it kind of exhausts me to even think about having to do a podcast like that. But yeah, I mean, he fucking sucks. He's gone. And, for any good, aside, from a business perspective, he's one of the greatest businessmen in the history of wrestling. But from a booking perspective, he's been dog shit for a very, 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 very long time. And, at this point, he's gone. Potentially, I don't see why WWE couldn't potentially be the best wrestling company in the world. Considering how much talent they have, considering the platform they have, the head start they have, the money that's behind them, the production that's behind them. The two things that really stand out to me as being huge detriments is the working style. It just sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah.
The wrestling in WWE sucks. And then the creative. If you could fix those two things, it wouldn't take much for them to literally be better than everybody. Who knows if that will actually happen? But the biggest hurdle is Vince is gone. So, maybe things go amazing from here, or maybe this is the beginning of the end. Who knows?
Yeah, Triple H has been appointed head of talent relations, head of creative, so I know a lot of people are hoping for the black and gold days of NXT to come back, except it be on USA and Fox. Also, that is waiting to be seen if that's the direction that things are going to move into. But, to kind of wrap up with thoughts on Vince, I think he, like you said, horrible person. I don't think anybody really needs to thank him. He's like Rich says, he's not our fathers. He's not anybody's, besides Shane and Stephanie. Like, he's not our fathers. We don't owe him a thank you. He's one of the most overrated wrestling creatives out there. Most of the stars that he got were already stars when he got them, or he's happened to luck into not screwing somebody up, or, Stone Cold's wife talking about his coffee being Stone Cold, and, he almost screwed up The Rock. Like, there's so many people that he almost screwed up, but somehow some mishap happened. He lucked into creating stars, and like you said, great businessman, very aggressive businessman, and also it helped that he was in New York and, a media capital, and was able to have the resources to get his product on pretty much every channel and kind of kill the territories. So yeah, great businessman, horrible creative, horrible person, overrated booker, and I think WWE now has actually a sliver of hope, like you mentioned, to be a great wrestling promotion.
My whole thing is like, okay, if you feel like you need to, if you feel like that's what you need to do is thank Vince McMahon, cool. Where's Dory Funk Seniors? Thank you. Where's Ole Anderson and Jim Barnett and Jim Hurd's, thank yous,
Yeah.
Like, you gonna thank Stu? You gonna retroactively give Stu Hart his? What about Jim Crockett and Jim Crockett Jr.? What about those guys? You gonna give one to Fritz? You gonna give one to the Sheik? Don Owen? What the fuck are we doing here?
Oh, man.
We need to thank Vern Gagne. Reach out to Vern. What about Giant Baba? You want to thank Baba and Ricky Dozan and Carlos Colon and Dusty Rhodes? Like, get the fuck out of here, bro. Anyone who's doing that doesn't know shit about wrestling. Like, seriously.
But what do you mean? I mean, the Peacock documentary told me that, wrestling was dying in dark and dingy, gyms. And then, the shining hero, Vince McMahon came along and saved the day, saved pro wrestling.
Nah, bro, you need to thank Jack Tunney. You need to thank Antonio Inoki, Eddie Graham. How about Vince Sr.? No one wants to thank Vince Sr.
Right.
Tex Rickard for fucking starting the promotion. They're just like, their whole thing is Hulk Hogan shows up, he beats the Iron Sheik. A little while later, he slams Andre the Giant, and we are off to the races. Thank you, Vince. That is wrestling. Nothing else fucking Bob Backlund, fuck him. Pedro Morales, fuck him. Bruno, he gets the pass. Like, basically, what I think most wrestling fans, they're like, there was a Bruno, and then Hulk Hogan showed up.
Bruno.
And Hulk Hogan slammed Andre. And then we were in the arenas. Before that, it was, it was just a bunch of dingy, smoky arenas. And every month they would go to Madison Square Garden where Bruno sold it out. After that, I don't know.
Yeah.
Fuck you, superstar Billy Graham.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Antonino Rocca. And Miguel Perez. Like, what are we doing here? This is ridiculous. Thank you, Vince.
Well, let me run through these questions real quick so we can get talking about New Japan. But from Jeffrey Fussraw Dahmer says, with Vince McMahon gone, do you think WWE will be more open to working with New Japan?
It's hard to say, really. Just like they say in the world of pro wrestling, you never say never, brother.
Right. I mean, Triple H was the guy, telling people how he could get them into New Japan. And clearly we know Triple H was very open to working with other promotions and bringing in international talent, stuff like that. So who knows? Maybe with Triple H in charge of creative and talent relations, maybe there's a possibility for that. But I don't think there's going to be. I think they're dying. I don't think they're going to bend over backwards to do it anytime soon.
They got Liger.
Yeah, for
NXT alumni.
Yeah. Rambo Slam Pigs.
Undefeated.
Yeah, he is. 1-0. Rambo Slam Pig said, in an alternate universe where Kota Ibushi had joined WWE after the Cruiserweight Classic, can you imagine his tweets about the Vince McMahon situation?
I don't know. Like, okay, so when was that? Like, let's just play a little.
That was what,
2015?
Yeah, 2015, 2014, 20. Yeah.
So let's just say he was signed up for, like, say 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. Is there any chance that he would have A, made it to the main roster, B, not been one of the guys that was laid off during the mass firings between now and then, and C, would still be working, like, after, like let's say he fulfilled a 5-year contract, would he even still be there? Like, you know what I mean? I don't see any scenario where, in my mind, Kota Ibushi, the guy that likes to take bumps on concrete, jump off of, the second floor of buildings and shoot fireworks.
Yeah.
There's no way that guy would have made it in NXT or made it to the main roster or, not gotten lost at some point while they were traveling on the road, trying to find his way out of Ohio? Like, there's no fucking way.
Yeah, like Bushi, where are you? We're in Miami right now. He's like ends up somehow in like Georgia, like.
Yeah, bro. Like that would not have worked on any level. You know what would happen if he did sign with WWE? He'd either be back at New Japan right now, or he would have jumped to AEW at this point, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't even understand his tweets right now. So I can't imagine what his tweets would be like in relation to North American professional wrestling. He'd be so confused, probably.
Yeah. Friend of the show, Dan Coffin says, with Vince out at WWE, do you see another push for NXT Japan in the possible future?
Maybe I did like, but maybe not at this point. I mean, I don't really know what's going to happen. I keep saying, the thing that's going on right now, from what I kind of gather, it looks like Stephanie is co-CEO with Nick Khan, and they've kind of established Triple H as like the head of creative, essentially. Well, head of creative doesn't mean business strategist, and like I don't see him formulating like the business plan for them to like take over Europe and South America and Asia like he was when he was in NXT.
I mean, in fact, he's not dusting off the map.
I don't think he's dusting off the map or the what are those things called? The little zip drive?
Oh, flash drive.
I don't think he's pulling out the flash drive with his with his presentation or whatever. I'm wondering personally if Stephanie and Triple H even survived Nick Khan, because this is the kind of period where there's going to be a power grab. They've been named co-CEO. That's not going to last forever. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Especially since Stephanie essentially was kind of kicked out of the company, like, almost a month ago now. And all these hit pieces about how horrible she was at her job. And now all of a sudden she's back.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think eventually there's going to be some come to Jesus moment, and one of those parties, or you never know, we like to joke about how Jeff Jarrett never loses. Someone's going to rise up and come to power. I don't know if it's Jeff.
World.
I don't know if it's Double J or, Khan, not Tony, but Nick, or if it's going to be the McMahons. Like, but this is very Game of Thrones, esque at this point. So as far as like what the business plan moving forward is, I mean, who the fuck
knows? Who knows? This thing could be sold. Like Amazon could buy this, Disney,
NBC Universal. Yeah, you don't know.
Could be watching WrestleMania on Disney Plus.
Social Suplex. You just never know.
Oh my gosh. Last question here from MJPR. With Vince dead and gone, rest in peace, Bozo. Or rest in piss, Bozo. He says
the name on the contract is Double J, but it's not Jeff Jarrett. It's Joshua and Jeremy.
MJPR says Vince dead and gone, rest in piss, Bozo. With Naito will Naito finally get his live his boyhood dream and headline WrestleMania?
Is that even his? That's not his boyhood dream, is it?
I don't think I've ever heard Naito mention the word WrestleMania before.
I've always gotten the impression that he didn't even watch like North American wrestling or care for it on any level at all. So I don't know. Probably not. I will tell you this. I like Naito a lot, but like if I was WWE and I was bringing over one guy, like let's say in some bizarro world, and I was bringing over a guy from Japan to headline or be in a main event, main attraction spot, Tetsuya Naito's the last guy. Not the last guy, but he's one of the very few guys that I wouldn't bring him over, is what I'm trying to say. Like, Okada, yes. Naito, fuck no.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it'll work out at all there.
At all. Like, that would not work at all.
Yeah. All right, well, enough about Vince McMahon and WWE.
A-Town Down versus Naito.
Logan Paul versus Naito.
The almighty Bobby Lashley takes on the ungovernable one, Tetsuya Naito. That sounds horrible. The big dog.
Well, let's jump into New Japan G1 Climax. We've got 4 nights to run through here. So we'll start with night 3. We won't really talk about any of the stuff on the undercards because I don't think either of us really watched any of the undercard stuff that's been happening. Obviously, a lot of multi-mans, a lot of preview stuff. So we'll start with night 3. One thing I do want to talk about, we had a question here from the LIJ versus Suzuki-Gun match from Les Commission 7252. So with a slight tease in their tag match, do you guys think they will go the route of a Shingo versus Sabre match for the KOPW trophy after G1 if neither man wins the tournament?
That's an interesting question. What are you thinking there?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I feel like they've been teasing a lot of stuff for Shingo. I mean, Shingo and Jonah have had some interactions and undercard stuff. Shingo and Sabre here. So I think there's plenty of different directions. Again, it's going to kind of really depend on where these guys, I feel like, whether they land in the finals or not, or get in that semifinal spot. But, I mean, going into the fall, Shingo is going to need contenders, and I feel like, Zach has already challenged for the world title this year. So I think to kind of rebound him and get something going for him, I think a KOPW matchup with Shingo could be cool, and maybe they do some kind of ultimate submission match or something like that kind of relates into more of Zach's wheelhouse, or you have to tap your opponent out 30 times. I don't know, some kind of wacky KOPW thing that works out for them.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know. Full disclosure, I have not been watching the undercard, so I haven't seen a lot of the teasing that's going on. So maybe there is something to that, but I haven't seen enough justifiable interaction between the two of them to really think this is specifically what they're building. One thing I am noticing is that, it feels kind of like, because there's so much going on in this G1 with so many combatants and so many different nights and different blocks, it's kind of hard to focus in on what the next progression of individual programs is going to be coming out of the G1. It's usually a little easier to kind of track that sort of thing because it's all happening within just one of 2 blocks, and you kind of see the story unfold night after night after night. But, with these guys, it's like there's inactivity, there's long distances between the nights that they're wrestling. And so it kind of feels like everything's sort of ancillary to the G1 itself. And I'm not really seeing that whole picture for certain individuals the way I normally do when I'm watching the G1.
Right, and we're seeing, undercard matches with a guy from C block against a guy from D block. Well, they potentially will not wrestle unless they both get to the semifinals. So you're kind of seeing, like you mentioned, this kind of mismatch of blocks in the undercards. So yeah, it's kind of hard to kind of see, what's the bigger picture, what's the story, what feuds are they setting up, or are they just trying to tease semifinal potential matchups? The one undercard match that I did see that I was really interested in, it was an LIJ versus TMDK match. It was Shingo and Bushi, I think it was, against Jonah and Bad Dude Tito. And man, the interactions with Shingo and Jonah were so good. I need a Shingo Jonah singles match right now. Their interactions were so good. The crowd was so behind Shingo, trying to muscle up and power Jonah around, and the crowd was just so into Jonah, throwing Bushi around, and Jonah just absolutely killed Bushi in this matchup, and the crowd was gasping when he does that thing where the guy will bounce off the ropes and then Jonah will just kind of jump in them and stop them. The crowd lost it when he did that to Bushi.
Yeah, I think they're doing a very good job with establishing some of these new entrants into the company via the undercards. So Bad Dude Tito, Jonah, Royce Isaacs, they're all kind of getting a lot of opportunity to shine, and they're doing that to their full advantage. Filthy as well, Yeah. So I've I haven't, even though I haven't watched them in full length, I'm kind of skipping through them a bit, and I've I have noticed like those guys are really like the intensity level and the way they're working. They're definitely like aiming to get over, get a contract, do something, and they're not just kind of resting on their laurels or kind of taking it easy on those nights. They're really going for it every single time they're out there.
Yeah, especially guys who are not in the tournament, guys like Bad Dude Tito and Royce Isaacs, who are making the most of this tour, even in their undercard tags. Like, they're going out there and absolutely killing it and putting on great performances.
Yep.
Well, let's talk about the tournament matches that happened on night 3. So the first tournament match came from the D block. We had the Tokyo Pimp, Yujiro Takahashi, defeating David Finlay via the Big Juice, 12 minutes and 59 seconds.
Yeah, not much to really unpack here. I mean, this night, let's just get this out of the way. This third night was a night that, by the time we're reviewing this, it's about a week old. And when it first occurred, almost every publication and every podcast and, pundit that's out there that is talking about the G1 was just burying this show, talking about like an all-time terrible G1 show, top to bottom, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
A lot of negativity. And I can definitely see why. I'm not going to sit here and cap and be like, open your eyes, you're blind. But I do think that they were kind of making a little bit of a mountain out of a molehill here. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think that this show was that egregious, to be honest with you. I think there was a couple booking decisions that I disagreed with, where I think it becomes more apparent in a case like this. Like, just to kind of give you an example, there will be nights of the G1 in the past where it's like because normally there's 5 matches each night.
Yeah.
Okay. There have been nights where we've had particular matches that line up with a few that we're going to review here, where it's like the match is okay, it's not so great. Then there's a terrible booking decision at the end. Okay, that sucked. But then there might be 2 really good matches that kind of pick things up, and then a mid match. And then you kind of call that like a down night. And it's like, there was some bad stuff there, but overall the wrestling was pretty good. And, they had a couple good matches. In this case, there's like only 4 matches. And so that margin for error kind of gets lowered. And then people are also kind of comparing and contrasting these shows to the high level of excellency that we've seen from, G1s in 2017, 18, 19, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
And so I think that the level of criticism, it's kind of outweighing what I personally as a fan am seeing on the screen. And take this match, for example. It's Yujiro and it's Dave Finlay. It wasn't something where I was like super excited, but I'd heard some of the bad reports before I watched it. I was like, this is fine. The wrestling's pretty good. It's not like blow you away or anything like that, but this is probably a notch above what we normally see out of both these guys in singles matches. Then the finish came and there's the shenanigans and it's kind of a bad finish. And, maybe the guy that you're not, a huge fan of, I think a lot of people are probably anti-Yujiro, anti-House of Torture. He goes over through nefarious means and they're like, they take a 3.25 star match and they rate it like 2 something. And it's like, all right, and that's not what I'm seeing here. I'm seeing like a match that was okay with a bad finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And maybe I'm probably a little bit more harsh on it. So I went 2.5 on this match, and I mean, the work was fine. But this is David Finlay's first G1. Like we talked about, like, I feel like he needs to be coming out here and having great performances night in and night out. And yes, I get it. It's Yujiro. But I mean, we see guys like Will Ospreay face Yujiro. We see guys like Shingo face Yujiro and get good matches out of him. And also that they're pushing the House of Torture stuff. There was a lot of distractions, interference. We had Cho coming out here giving the wrench to Yujiro, which Yujiro used to knock Finlay out and kind of get the cheap win. So it was just kind of like a blast start. Usually that first G1 match is usually like a hot opener.
Right.
And so it was kind of like a down way to get into this night's action. And like I said, it's Yujiro, it's Finlay. Obviously not super high investment in either guy, but it's like, man, like, give us a little bit more, something to kind of dig our teeth into. And, Finlay, go out there, kind of put the effort in, and maybe we don't have as many shenanigans in this match, but it is what it is. And
Well, here's the way I see it. I agree with you there for sure. I think that especially for guys like a Dave Finley or like a Filthy Tom Lawler or you name them, for those individuals who are kind of like, this is your first time in the G1, you're sort of like in the testing phase, and this is your opportunity to really make a name for yourself and get over. You need to be going out there every single night and not just giving your best, but giving more than your best. You need to be like fucking murdering it. Okay. I do agree with that, but I don't take that into consideration when I'm just in a vacuum rating the overall quality of the match itself. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's not really a consideration. Again, I agree with you. I think that this needed to be better, especially when it's the opening match of the, G1 portion of the night. Again, it is Yujiro. I just feel like what I think I'm seeing, and there's going to be a trend here, and this is actually something that is a talking point. There have been a lot of kind of bullshit finishes in this G1 already.
Yeah.
And I think that is starting to also play into the overall enjoyment level of a certain percentage of the fan base. And I mean, if you've got an audience that is tuning in night after night for the whole 20 nights or however long it is, and and then you're feeding them bad finish, two times a night out of 4, that's going to start to really wear thin. And I think that's another thing that's also affecting people's perception of the tournament, which is not a good thing.
Right. Yeah. I don't know what the game plan is going forward, but there needs to be a lot less count out victories and kind of screwy interference finishes. So this match, it was fine. Yujiro gets a win and goes up 2 points.
The one thing I do think is interesting is, like, we always talk about, like, well, anybody can win in a G1, and there are upsets, but you also see a lot of decisions where you're like, that figures. But in this G1, because I think they're trying to work out the math and they've got these smaller blocks, we're seeing a lot, in my opinion, a lot more instances where I'm surprised at who won.
Yeah.
And I think that also plays into why we're seeing these kinds of finishes, because they're trying to preserve the integrity of the characters and stuff, but also like given out for why they're losing, So it's been interesting. Definitely not what I was expecting from this year's G1 so far.
Yeah. So then following that, we had B block action with Tama Tonga defeating Chase Owens with the gun stun. I like this match a lot better, even with some of the interference that was happening. Obviously, Jado was out there with Tama Tonga and kind of trying to help Tama kind of fight off the cheating tactics that Chase was doing throughout the match. And, Tama was kind of fighting from underneath here with Chase kind of cheating and trying to do what he can, taking every shortcut he can to kind of get the edge over Tama Tonga. But towards the end, Tama was able to hit the gun stun on Chase and get the win.
Yeah, I've noticed a theme where guys that have been in the Bullet Club or are in the Bullet Club and they face off with one another, and there have been quite a few of those matches already, at least on the shows we're going to review tonight. And when one of them is cheating, the other one kind of already knows most of their tricks, and they're able to kind of better avoid and defend those tactics than your average Hantai member. And that's something that I'm noticing with Tama Tonga, especially in this match. Like, a lot of the cheating, stalling, and different tactics that Chase Owens tried to employ just didn't really work because Tama Tonga already knows that shit. And they're also making that concerted effort to show him as this like warpathing babyface who's on this, crusade to get Jay White. And so they're doing a really good job of it. And it's not just in this match in particular. It's also something that's playing out in the undercard tag matches night after night as well. But I did like this match. I thought it was pretty good. I do think that Chase Owens and Tama Tonga could probably have a better match in them, but it was fine, and this was another one where I saw people like actively negative on it. I didn't fully understand that, to be honest with you, but the one detrimental thing I will say about this night is like it wasn't great.
Yeah.
It was just good, or it was just fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought this was pretty good. I went 3.25 on it. I really enjoyed the work, and I really enjoying the build of Tama Tonga, and like you mentioning, him being able to kind of outsmart some of these Bullet Club guys. Like Chase was trying to use the exposed corner here towards the end, which he was able to block and hit Chase into the exposed corner, which allowed him to hit the gun stun to get the win. So yeah, he's outmaneuvering these Bullet Club guys. On the undercard, he's teaming with guys like Okada and getting that rub and really getting over as a Hantai, home team New Japan guy.
That's definitely something that, I think in 2022 works for me, is when a babyface is not stupid, and I think there's always going to be room for a quote unquote dumb babyface, because you need there to be an out for the heel to get over on the babyface. But sometimes it is just refreshing to see a guy be smarter than the heels, and the heels try shit, and it's not going to fly with him, and he already sees it coming. And then I don't know, that seems to be eliciting a better reaction a lot of the time from the audience as well, because, they can get that pop and that, that excitement from the crowd. So I'm liking what they're doing with Tama Tonga here.
Yeah, it's been really good. So moving on to the semi-main event from the A block, we had Bad Luck Fale defeating Lance Archer by count out, 10 minutes and 46 seconds. So this is what you alluded to earlier. We're seeing a lot of count out finishes, especially coming from the A block. We saw previously Yano winning by count out over Jonah in this same A block, and now here Fale getting the count out victory over Lance Archer. And I think the deal here is obviously with Archer being an AEW wrestler, I think New Japan wants to play nice, keep their relationship going good, and that they're going to protect Lance Archer, I think, as much as possible throughout this tournament. And so, having the count-out victory here, like you mentioned too, like for the math to work out, like certain guys need to win. And so whatever the scenario is, they needed Fale to get the win here. They didn't want to pin Archer. So they had these guys kind of clever each other around for 10 minutes and then do the count-out finish.
Yes. And, that's definitely the case. And, spoiler alert, there's going to be more count-out victories coming on this review show as well. So this isn't the last of them. But this one really, I think, resonated negatively with people, because this was the second count-out finish in 3 shows within just a couple of days of each other. And I think that was something where people were like, they left a bad taste in their mouth. The other thing with it too is this just screams politics, because of the fact that, okay, it's Archer and he needs to be dominant, but he needs to mathematically take some losses because he's not going to win the block, but he needs to look strong and have a certain amount of victories. I'm guessing he's probably going to continue to win in this block after this, and probably lose to Okada, maybe tie Okada, but Okada will have the tiebreaker over him when it's all said and done. That's just my guess.
Yeah.
And so he kind of needed this loss, but AEW doesn't want a guy like Fale beating him clean. So then they kind of agree between the two bookers, well, we can do the count out victory. And it's like, it just doesn't sit right. For my money, I feel like Bad Luck Fale is a believable enough guy that anybody in the, bracket or even in the company can comfortably take a loss to him, whether it's an AEW guy or not. So yeah, this just screamed political bullshit to me, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, Fale is beating guys like Okada in the G1. He's a, title challenger. Yes, he's not the best, wrestler, best in-ring worker, but I think he does kind of have that credibility. And for a guy like Lance Archer, before he left New Japan, never really broke in. I mean, he was on that way of kind of getting higher up the card, but he never really broke into that main event scene. So I don't think it would have been the worst thing for him to eat a bad luck fall or eat a grenade and get pinned here.
My main thing here is basically this. If Jon Moxley can eat a clean, forgettable 10-minute pinfall loss to Hiroki Goto that nobody remembers, nobody talks about, I don't see why Lance Archer couldn't hypothetically lose to Fale.
Right.
You know, now here's my gripe. This is the lowest rated match of the night. There's no way this was the lowest rated match of the night unless you're just strictly basing it solely off the bullshit finish. And I'm starting to learn, I think for some people, a count out finish like this is like the death knell. I think there's there's a lot of fans out there that just cannot handle the absurdity of a count out finish. But I don't know. I think this had like 3-something on Cage Match. Dude, this was, how many minutes was it? Like,
this was 10 minutes and 46 seconds.
Bro, they came out here, they were fucking clobbering each other. They did a crazy chair spot on the outside where, you know, one of them went through a whole stack of chairs. Archer was walking the ropes and flipping and shit. Even Fale had his working boots on. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you need to go watch this. I'm not even going to tell you this was recommended. I will tell you this was not bad. In fact, this was good. The kind of rating that it got on Cage Match would have you believe that they were putting each other in nerve holds and holding each other on the mat for prolonged periods of time where nothing was happening and the crowd was groaning. That's not what happened here. These guys went out there and really worked hard, I think because they knew the finish was going to suck really bad. But ultimately, it doesn't matter because I think for a lot of people, they just say, it's Archer, it's Fale, it's 2 big stiffs, it's a count-out finish in 11 minutes. This was bullshit, 2 stars. I mean, I don't see it, man. Like,
well, I think another thing that hurts it too, and also it's not their fault, it's just it's the semi-main event of this show.
Yeah.
It's following 2 matches that had a lot of interference and gimmickry.
Yeah.
And so you come to this point, the semi-main event, and you know, you're craving for a great match. This is the
You're in that flow of disappointment, and it just continues to like rain down on
right
you at that point.
Because that's what happened to me. Like, it's a G1 Climax. Like, I'm watching. All right, we had this, you know, Yujiro Finley. Then Tam Tonga Chase, that was good, but you know, we still had kind of some interference.
Right.
And then you get a semi-main event. It's like, all right, we're the semi-main event already. I mean, I have no problem with Fale and Archer. I think, you know, we talked about their matches in the past, but it's like, man, it's a G1, man. Like, I want some great matches. Like, and that's another thing. Like, these matches are also being graded against the standard of a pre-pandemic G1 full house, you know, great workers in a tournament with 2 blocks. And so that's kind of the grading curve. And so, like you mentioned, the work was good. They worked really hard, but was this a, you know, Ishii?
But here's my thing with that. Okay, and it's really simple. Just grade it appropriately. Like, I'm not saying cap for it and give it 4 stars because it's not 4 stars. This isn't even close to 4 stars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This wasn't a very good match. What I am saying is, don't give it like 1.5 stars or negative stars like people. I was saying, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, you know, and this isn't even like a let's protect New Japan as a product sort of thing. It's just like, I watched the match. It was 11 minutes. These guys worked really hard. They took crazy bumps. They were flying. They did no rest holds. This is what you would call a work rate match, and it had a really bad finish. I don't know. I feel like a 3-star rating at minimum is appropriate, but I get it. You know, people were not happy this night.
Yeah. So now moving on to the main event of the show, coming from the C block, we had Hiroki Goto defeating Tetsuya Naito 22 minutes and 41 seconds with the GTR.
Yeah, this match was very good. I wouldn't call it great, but it was very good, and it was like the one, you know, notable high note of the night. Again, I will say this. Post Wrestling, who I think does really good coverage of wrestling in general, especially New Japan Pro Wrestling, they put out a post that was like recommended matches of the night. None. I'm like, did you guys not watch Goto? And I get it. If you've seen Goto and Naito a million times and you're just kind of down on both guys, and you also know that Goto's not winning this tournament and whatever, cool. But like, let's not cap and act like this wasn't a 4-star match. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, again, though, you know what I think it was? What you talked about. It's like bad match, underperforming match, terrible finish. By the time they get here, they're like, God, it's Naito and Goto again. And it doesn't matter how good the match was. They weren't going to like it. But I thought the match was very good. I thought it was very hard hitting. I thought that I've always thought that these guys have very good chemistry with one another. And one of the craziest things was at the very end, Naito hit Goto with, and actually, this isn't the only time this happened in the tournament, but Goto's been landing that Northern Lights bomb on people. And I mean, he's like planting them on their fucking heads, like for real. Like,
you mean Naito?
Oh, yeah. What'd I say? Goto?
Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, Naito. Yeah, he planted Goto, and that's not the only time he's going to do that in this tournament. And that was pretty scary, but Goto seemed to be fine. But yeah, Naito wasn't able to get he was able to get a running Destino, but he wasn't able to get the full, powerful Destino. And yeah, he ended up getting hit with what's the move that Goto does, like his old finisher where he puts him up in the suplex.
Yeah, Shoutin' Kai.
Yeah, he hit him with the Shoutin' Kai, which he doesn't always bust out. That was pretty crazy. And then he hits him with the GTR, and I was like, oh shit, he beat Naito. And yeah, kind of surprising.
Yeah, I enjoyed this match a lot, and I was watching this match behind. I wasn't spoiled, but I was under the assumption for some reason that Naito was just going to win. So I was just kind of like, whatever, watching the match. Like, it was good, but then like Goto was like coming back, and like you mentioned, he did like the running Destino, and it was funny. Like the setup for the running Destino was almost like a finishing sequence. It kind of seemed like
he might beat him with it, which I was like, he never beats anybody with that, but he might. It's Goto. He might beat him.
Right. So he hits that and Goto kicks out. I'm like, oh, okay. And then the match really picked up from there. And there's like so many great counters. Even the crowd was getting into it because you mentioned when he hits the Shoutin' Kai, they gasp. But then he picks him up and hits the GTR. And they gasp and clap, big applause for Goto getting the win here. And I think it's very interesting, too, what the stories are telling. Because, normally in the past, Goto's always like, the G and G1 is for Goto. And he's very cocky, and he's going to LA and training, and he's supposed to be having this great year. But the story now this year, he's like, I'm not saying any of that unless I win. Like, the G and G1 will be Goto if I go out here and win. So he's kind of being a little bit more reserved. When you have Naito, he's like, this is like my last shot to really like win this tournament and main event the Dome. So kind of telling this kind of like story of like, this is kind of make or break for Naito, and he eats the loss here. So I think they just told a great story with both guys. The work was really good here. Yeah, I went 4 stars on this. Yeah, I thought it was a really, really great matchup.
Yeah, I went about 4 stars as well. And I mean, that's the thing that we pointed out when we did our review is like with the limited number of matches in each block, a loss is much more detrimental than it was before. And when you hit that 0-2 mark, you're really you might lose the block already, but once you hit 0-3, it's a virtual, you're done. So, you can't take more than 2 losses. Basically, you're in very, very dangerous territory when that happens. And, I think a lot of people just didn't expect Naito to lose to Goto. Naito's been beating Goto in singles matches every time out, going back to like 2015 or 2014. So, I mean, it's been a really long time since Goto's been able to get the better of this guy. And, he did it this night, which was kind of surprising. And we've talked in the past about how Geto likes to sometimes tell those come from behind stories. And I feel like with Naito, that might be what we're seeing here, just in a more condensed version. Obviously, he can't go 3-0 or 4-0 and come back and win because the math won't work out, but he can go 2-0 and be on the chopping block. And that adds a lot of drama to every single match because the wins and losses matter more than they normally do in the 10 block system. So, from a storytelling perspective, that's very interesting. And this was a great way to end a bad night with something that was genuinely good and also kind of shocking.
Yeah, definitely. And so, yeah, it's one of those matches where, like, people want to say, oh, nothing on the show. Definitely, I would say watch Goto and Naito. Great work, great main event, and just the whole story of the match and Goto coming from behind and having the big counters. And, yeah, the closing sequence was great with him countering that last Destino into the Shoutin' Kai and then hitting GTR. And like I mentioned, the crowd, anytime... That's another thing I'm using to help judge matches. Like, if the crowd is, like, gasping, like, if you get the crowd to break the rules, like, they're into the match and like they like the finish. So yeah, great matchup here. And we had a question here from Less Commission 7252. With Hiroki Goto defeating Naito, do you guys think New Japan should use the never openweight 6-man tag team belts to build up new stars and rejuvenate careers like they did for Yoshihashi, and now possibly have the chance to rejuvenate Goto's career?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. I mean, what's the point of a title if it can't be utilized in a way to generate interest in the product, in a match, in a program, in a character, in a wrestler? If it can't elevate somebody or be a platform for elevation. So, I mean, yeah, that goes without saying. And I feel like that's a great purpose of a title like the 6-man tag team titles. I think that, who knows, maybe, I know that some people are saying like Goto's the one, or like in this instance, you're mentioning Goto, but I feel like they might be trying to rejuvenate Yo more than anybody else right now. But
yeah,
that all remains to be seen, because that's sort of on the back burner until the G1's over. But yeah, I definitely agree with that would be a great idea if that's what their aim was.
Yeah, I mean, and Goto is still a very solid worker and can go out here and have a 4-star main event. So he's definitely still a very valuable asset to the roster. And so, yeah, I think, kind of giving him a rub here and using those 6-man titles would be great. So we move on to night 4, Saturday, July 23rd. The first G1 match came from the C block, where we had Zack Sabre Jr. defeating Aaron Hanare 14 minutes and 15 seconds with the Sunday Rail Engineering Works Replacement Bus Service.
Okay. Yeah, this was an interesting one, because Zach obviously is, kind of elevated at this point, coming off of this past year's New Japan Cup and kind of looking to get back into that main event scene. And, Hanare rebounding after a big upset win over Tanahashi, looking to really cement his mark. And, a win over a guy like Zack Sabre would have meant a lot here. He didn't pick up the win, but what he was able to do was showcase his brute force and his kind of strongman move offense. One thing that I thought about while I was watching this match, and I feel like it might be something that I'm liking about Zach lately, and might be part of the reason that he's so appealing to me as a fan. You look at two of my all-time favorite wrestlers, Bret Hart and Ric Flair. They don't have a lot in common, but one of the things both of them had in common that most great wrestlers do is they can make their opponent, whether they're good or not, or great or not, look better than they actually are, And that's something that I think Zach was doing in this match, something that was kind of missing from the Tanahashi-Hanare match, where Zach really, really made Hanare look like he had him in danger for like 99% of the match. And this is also a story that they're kind of telling with Zach, where he had a lot of issues with Kenta in the first match and was able to, out of nowhere, kind of get the submission victory. And in this match, they started telling the story where his ribs were hurt. And if you go back to the New Japan Cup, down the tail end of that tournament, he had a lot of issues with his rib. Well, it looks like that quote unquote reoccurring injury has emerged during this tournament. Either that or, we've also seen where Hanare likes to attack the ribs, especially with his strikes, that Muay Thai style. He was really digging those body blows in, and maybe he re-aggravated whatever it is that's going on with Zach, but he had Zach in trouble for most of the match and really looked like he was getting ready to put him away. And then ultimately, boom, out of nowhere, Zach put him in a submission hold, got the victory, and got him out of there. But he did a fantastic job making Hanare look like he belonged. And I'm not even taking anything away from Hanare, saying like, oh, it was a carry job necessarily. But Zach is so good at the selling portion and all of that. And I feel like that's something that's looked over when it comes to Zack Sabre. We always hear the stories about how he eats opponents up and he makes guys, look kind of foolish. Well, I think those days are kind of starting to pass away a little bit. And he's starting to move more into this kind of arena of his wrestling, where he's selling a lot more and making the guy look very believable, and then using his very real proven submission acumen to beat the guys. And I think that's a great story. I feel like that might be something we see from Zach for the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this match a lot. And like you mentioned, I thought Hanare looked really, really good in this matchup. He looked like a killer. And like you mentioned, they really emphasized his striking in this match. And he had some nasty strikes all throughout this match. He's now doing this kind of springboard, spinning wheel kick thing off the middle rope. He had some nasty elbows. There was one where like Zach was like running at him. He just like this crazy elbow. You just heard like kind of like crack and echo throughout the arena. And so a lot of his strikes were kind of sounding off, and they kind of told the typical Zack Sabre story. When he's in there for a striker, he at points he tried to outstrike Hanare with the European uppercuts and chops and stuff like that, but Hanare was just a better striker and was able to knock Zack out with some of the bigger strikes, and Zack would have to, like you mentioned, try to catch Hanare off of submissions. And that's exactly what happened towards the end there, when Hanare was going for the Streets of Rage, but then Zack rolled out, got an Achilles hole mixed with a half crab, and was able to get the quick submission victory on Hanare.
Makes sense too, because like the commentary team pointed out, Hanare, he suffered a very serious Achilles tear a few years back when he was still a Lion. Took a very, very long time to rehab from that before he came back. And so kind of going back to that old Achilles heel, that was sort of his weakness, and Zach sort of knew that and capitalized on it.
Yeah, and then the next night on the undercards, it was United Empire versus Suzuki-gun, and Hanare was still selling his ankle, and then he was going after Zach and trying to hurt Zach's ankle.
Interesting. I was listening to a podcast with some fighters recently, and they were talking about the different things you can do in a fight. And they're like, when it comes to let's say grappling or wrestling, you throw a guy or you take a guy down. Okay, that's awesome, but it doesn't mean that you won, in the eyes of most people watching. But let's say you're a striker and you head kick a guy or you punch him in the face. That probably is going to do a lot of damage, but it's not a guarantee that you're going to knock the person out or that you've won the fight. But when it comes to submissions, totally different story. When you lock in a submission and you really have it, it is 100% guarantee that you have bested that man and you have beaten him, because they're either going to tap out or they're going to snap a ligament or they're going to pass out. And so that's kind of like one of the beautiful things that I never heard it put that. Well, I've heard some of that put that way, but I never thought of in comparison to other things you can do in a match, those things are great and they lead to you potentially winning. But with a submission, you lock it in and it's on and it's really on and you have the guy compromised. What are they going to do? They're done. And I feel like that's what we're starting to see from Zach in this tournament.
Yeah. We had a question here from the Dark Soldier. It says Hanare was the first person in the G1 this year to win his match. That means that before a second G1 match happened, Hanare had more points than anyone. Shocking, right?
I think for some people it was shocking that he beat Tanahashi, but at the end of the day, this guy's not going to end up with more points than anybody else. So, enjoy it while it lasted, which was, a couple minutes basically.
Yeah, so obviously losing to Zach here, that puts him at 1-on-1 with 2 points, and Zach moves up to 4 points here in the C block.
The last guy who got a surprise shock win over Tanahashi last year, Chase Owens, he went 8 or 7-2?
2. Do you mean 2-7?
2-7, yeah. So, I mean, that's probably the same kind of situation we're going to see with Hanare. He gets the big win over Tanahashi, and then he eats more falls than anybody else in the block, probably.
Yeah, which we kind of talked about on the preview show. It's kind of hard seeing him beat some other people in this block.
Yeah.
So then moving on to the next matchup here from the D block, we had the Dragon, Shingo Takagi, defeating Yoshihashi in 17 minutes and 28 seconds with the Ground Cobra.
This match fucking ruled.
Yes, it did.
We're not, okay, let's be totally transparent. We have not reached the high levels of classic matches that we've seen in previous years' G1s. We're not there yet. But when it comes to a match in the middle of the card being G1 worthy, this was definitely one of those matches that I felt was G1 worthy and would have fit in probably any block night for the last 5 or 6 years. This just was fucking awesome. Like, these guys went out there and, like, anybody that's a Yoshihashi denier in 2022, like, you don't know what you're talking about, or you're not watching the product, or you're just, stubborn and hard-headed, because this guy is awesome. And, like, him and Shingo, they went out there and they told an incredible story. They had an awesome match with each other.
Yeah, one of the interesting talking points of this match was with one of the maneuvers. Obviously, Shingo uses the Made in Japan, which is very similar to Yoshihashi's Karma. And so I guess, leading into this match, Yoshihashi is like, it's going to be interesting to face Shingo because he does a move like Karma. I've never taken my own move before, so I'm wondering what's going to happen if I hit it. And so that they built to that, Shingo did hit the Made in Japan for a big near fall, and then later on in the match, Yoshihashi hit the Karma, but he wasn't able to cover him right away. So kind of interesting story there. But there's a lot of great counters, very hard hitting. Like we mentioned earlier with the Never Six Man's kind of rejuvenating careers, definitely did that for Yoshihashi. Like, this guy goes out here, always gives it his all, very hard hitting, and this is a guy that you kind of feel like he's fighting for his G1 spot. Like, he knows that he could potentially be on a cutting block, and he's going to go out here and kind of earn his spot, and that's what he did here. Like I mentioned, these great counters, big lariats, big chops. He had a great counter off the Last of the Dragon into the DDT. He hit a Canadian Destroyer, which is an awesome spot there. And then
there was a lot of just the sequences and counters and the back and forth at the tail end of this match was outstanding. Like, it's something that I feel like has been missing at the top level from New Japan. And on this night, there were several matches that kind of harkened back to that type of style of wrestling that kind of put New Japan on the map in the first place. And this match was awesome. You want to hear a hot take from me, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Yoshihashi's Western Lariat is better than the Pumping Bomber. Yoshihashi's Western Lariat is better than anybody's clothesline in professional wrestling, period. Going back to the early Genesis days of this podcast, when I specifically was the biggest Yoshihashi detractor and hater that was out there, I always gave the man his due diligence when it came to that clothesline. And it seems like hasn't been busting it out like he normally used to in the past. But
right, that was like one of his big signatures.
Yeah, he brought it back out for this match, and he fucking blasted Shingo. Now, it's not quite the same, but, like, give that to me any day over Shingo's Pumping Bomber, over Taichi's Axe Boomba. Who else has an incredible clothesline that's out there? I can't think of anybody in other promotions, but
Kojima, the strongest arm.
It's better than that for sure. He's got the best clothesline, period. He just fucking, like, he jams it up, and, like, it's so dynamic. Like, if there's nothing else that this guy doesn't do better than anybody else, that's the one thing. Like, he clotheslines the shit up. He puts
his whole body into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Western Lariat's awesome, and yeah, this was a really fun matchup here. Very hard hitting, a lot of great counters, and I think they really kind of gave Yoshihashi some credibility here because Shingo had to bust out the ground cobra, that quick kind of flash pin to get Yoshihashi, because Yoshihashi was on fire towards the end there, was looking to put Shingo away, try to go for the Karma again, and Shingo was able to kind of get that ground cobra real quick and derail Yoshihashi's momentum.
Yeah, I wondered about that, and I'm like, is that more about presenting, is that just a one-time story of this match and that's what it is? Is it like what you mentioned in a quasi elevation of Yoshihashi, or is there something to the idea that Shingo is struggling in this year's G1? Because keep in mind, he lost to Juice, and then he wasn't able to emphatically put away Yoshihashi. you would think in the past, those are two opponents that he would have had no problem getting through on most nights. And, it's not necessarily the strongest start for a guy like Shingo Takagi, former world champion.
Right. And so I think there's a lot of that going on too. And also I think they're just trying to really establish that ground cobra, because that was a big part of the Taichi rivalry when they were doing the 30 count match and the 15 count match. That was kind of one of his flash pins, and a pin he would use to get multiple falls. So I think they're really trying to establish that as a secondary flash finish for him.
Yeah, that could be it too. I mean, you didn't necessarily criticize a Bret Hart when he did, a roll up pinfall, like a small package, or, like the famous Stone Cold Steve Austin, the one where he kicked off the turnbuckle and pinned the guy.
Yeah.
He didn't criticize him when he beat people that way, as opposed to using the sharpshooter. So maybe I'm being a little too critical of Shingo for not using one of his big finishers and instead utilizing the ground cobra. Maybe that's exactly what it is. They're trying to establish that move. But for me watching it, I kind of got the impression like, oh, he had to bust that out like last minute when he was struggling. So yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. We had a question here from MJ Does PR. From bag of socks to future KOPW provisional champion, would you buy into a singles title run for Yoshihashi?
Remember, there was a time where I didn't want Yoshihashi to ever win any title ever on any level in New Japan.
Yeah.
But we're kind of past that. This guy's held, Never Gold. He's held IWGP Gold. And the next step for him is to win a singles title. Now, would you consider the KOPW provisional trophy a real title or not, Jeremy?
I mean, it doesn't have the IWGP branding on it. It doesn't even have the Never branding on it. I mean, it's a singles, role. I mean, that they main event shows with it. It's been elevated now with Shingo having it. So, I mean, I think it'd be a good little thing for Yoshihashi to eventually get.
What's more prestigious, winning the KOPW title or holding the Money in the Bank briefcase?
I would say KOPW. At least you're going to main event a show of KOPW.
What about King of the Ring versus KOPW?
Well, I mean, what year King of the Ring were we talking about?
Any day, anytime.
Well, I mean, I guess if you're going with the overall, I think I'd still go with KOPW.
I think KOPW like kind of exists in that like kind of nebulous world of like it's an accomplishment, but it's not like a title run. You know what I mean?
Right. It's like a filler kind of thing. Like, we have nothing to do with you right now, so here you go. Here's the KOPW trophy. But yeah, I mean, I totally wouldn't mind Yoshihashi having something like that. I think he's been working really hard, especially after that monster Never openweight 6-man tag team title run that he had with Hiroki Goto and Tomohiro Ishii. So yeah, I think it'd be fun to have Yoshihashi having that and mixing it up with some of the guys on that level.
Maybe it really depends on what kind of whack ass stipulations would Yoshihashi pick.
Yeah, well,
and we don't have to delve into it, but like I could just imagine him having like the fucking lamest stipulations.
Yeah. What if he's like, I don't want to stip. I just want to
wrestle.
I just want to hit my Western Lariat.
Oh man.
So then moving on to the semi-main event, coming from the A block, we had the Rainmaker, Kazuchika Okada, defeating Toroyano 10 minutes and 10 seconds with the money clip. So Yano coming out here with the bottle of sake, very serious. We had, violent death match Yano here. He wasn't playing no games. There wasn't no funny haha. And, he was really taking it to Okada in this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely unexpected. We've seen a lot of different facets and modes when it comes to Toroyano in the G1 over the years. And normally there's some sort of uniform story going on. There's some sort of uniform, whatever it is, year over year. Obviously, he's going to play like a comedic foil for most of the tournament. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of consistent the whole way through. We don't normally see like one night of the G1 where it's different than the rest. And obviously we're only on his second night, so it's hard to tell what the rest of the tournament's going to hold for him. I'm assuming he's kind of going to go back to the same Toroyano that we sort of saw against Jonah on the first night of the tournament.
Yeah, well, I think he reverted back immediately right after he lost the match.
Right. But I feel like this was appropriate in the sense that, like, it is Okada and they are stablemates, and he has struggled with Okada in the past and been unable to beat him in their last two outings. And so he kind of reverted back to his roots as, you know, sort of a no-nonsense, hard-hitting, badass sort of character. And I felt like Chris Charlton did a great job on the mic, sort of talking about his inspirations and the backstory and, you know, sort of his history, probably for a lot of newer fans that maybe are not as familiar with that aspect of Yano. And for a guy like Okada, who is kind of going through a quote unquote monster block, it would have felt inappropriate to break things up with the one comedic act when he's kind of going through these different stages, and it's sort of like a gauntlet challenge. So I liked what they did here, and I felt like it was a good sort of pace to keep with everything that's going on story-wise.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I think it had great motivation for Yano to do this. This was their first singles match in 5 years. And in their previous 3 singles matches, like you mentioned, Okada beat him. Okada beat him in 2013 New Japan Cup and in the 2014 and 2017 G1s. So Yano definitely had to change something up here to try and get the advantage over Okada. So yeah, he was using chairs. He, doing some more kind of violent, underhanded tactics. He spit the sake in Okada's eyes towards the end there to get a near fall roll up, which I was like, oh man, like that could have been it.
It was really close. Like in fact, it was so close that like Okada popped up and was like, was that 3 or was that 2?
Right. Yeah. And then Okada went for the Omega pin after that. And then Yano was going to go for a low blow, but Okada caught it, hits the drop kick, does the, that Randy Orton kind of backbreaker thing, and eventually gets him into the money clip.
Yeah, and you know what? Even if you're not like a big Yano fan and you might want to say, like, let's say skip this, I definitely thought that this was the low point of the evening, probably from just pure in-ring quality, but it was by no means bad. It was pretty good. And at just over 10 minutes, it wasn't very long. And, it was notable just from the character work because it was very different from what you would normally expect from Yano. Normally, you would hear us complaining about a 10-minute Yano match, but this wasn't your typical 10-minute Yano match. And I felt like the exchanges and the near falls and the counters at the tail end were really good. And it made sense from the context that, like, these guys have been teaming together for like almost a decade now. So who would know Okada's tricks and tendencies better than a guy like Yano and being able to kind of exploit them? But ultimately, he did try to go back to his, tomfoolery at the end where he tried to low blow Okada. And that seemed to be his undoing because that ended up being the way that Okada caught the hand and got him into the money clip. Why doesn't he call it the Okada lock? Doesn't that seem better? Let's just call it the Okada lock.
Yeah, he's trying to go off, the whole Rainmaker money making kind of thing.
I get it, but whatever. But this money clip, the way he employed it, this is the best utilization of the money clip he has ever used because he put him flat on his belly and then torqued up.
Yeah. And
this is what I've been saying for a long time. Like, you can't just sit the guy down and just turn it into a rest hold, and that's not what he did here. Like, he put him in position, then he fucking turned him over, then he pulled up, and I was like, okay, this is the money clip we've been looking for a long time.
Yes.
If Yano had done a little, like Yano did the cell where he was in it, straining, going out, and then he lightly tapped, but he should have done the like shouting and in pain and like, oh my God,
Yeah.
And okay, yeah, because then it would have told me like Okada has finally figured out and mastered Money Clip, and this is a real threat. I liked the way he put it on. You know what's weird? I don't have a lot of wrestling dreams, but I had a dream. And I'm not going to tell you, I'll tell you off the air, but I had a dream that I did something similar. And I think I've kind of quasi-invented a potential move that's very similar to this. Not quite the same, but yeah.
Nice. But yeah, this is a really fun matchup. I really enjoyed it. And I'm pretty hard on Yano matches, but yeah, this is a really fun matchup. I think it's a match to go out of your way. Well, not go out of your way, but I think it's a match that's it's worth watching. I think you can just watch the whole night.
The whole night was good. This was, what? Was this the best night so far?
Yeah, I think so.
Probably, yeah.
MJ's PR says, is the Okada match Yano's best of his career?
No. But it's probably the best match he's had in just off the top of my head, just thinking off the top of my head, I know it's a totally different like vibe, but I think I liked that one Hiromu match he had with during the New Japan Cup where they were cutting each other's hair and running around the building and stuff.
I'll take this one. Dark Soldier asks, if Okada beating Cobb, the person everyone assumed would be the only one to beat Okada in the A block, and everyone already picking Okada to win the block, do you have a feeling Okada is going to be undefeated in the A block?
It's definitely a real possibility. I don't know that I agree with that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a possibility, right?
Yeah, I think especially if in the B block, Jay White also goes undefeated, then you would have a semifinal with both guys who are undefeated from their block facing off, which would make that match, I think, even more intriguing.
So I'm actually looking at Yano's match history. The two highest rated matches that he has on Cage Match. Now, granted, it's not, going to be fully encompassing, but the two highest rated matches that he's been involved with are those two 6-man tags, the all chaos 6-man tag team matches for the Never titles.
Yeah.
Back in August and September of 2020. Those are his highest rated matches, but his highest rated singles match is against Hiroshi Tanahashi in 2011 in August. And they did have a pretty famous rivalry at the time. So that makes sense. The most recent great singles match that he had was against Zack Sabre Jr. in the G1 in 2018, which was definitely a comedy match, but was definitely very good. And I remember we gave pretty high marks to that.
Yeah.
And I think they've also got the Kota Ibushi and Kenny Omega matches from the G1s in those same years rated higher. They also have the Hiromu match rated higher, the one that I like. So yeah. Yeah, people hate on Yano. He's not all bad, but he's just mostly bad.
So moving on to the main event of this evening from the B block, we had Switchblade Jay White, the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, defeating Tomohiro Ishii 22 minutes and 2 seconds with the Blade Runner.
Well, these guys, they know each other very well. They've been in the ring countless number. Well, it's not countless because you could actually count it, but they've been in the ring with each other in a lot of high profile spots time and time again. And, there've been a lot of instances where Tomohiro Ishii has been able to get the big win over Jay White in meaningful moments and spots, and kind of felt like if there was a chance for someone to beat Jay White in this block, Ishii had as good of a chance as anybody. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do it this night.
Yeah, Ishii has a lot of recent big wins. 2019 G1, 2020 G1, which was the one where he kind of knocked Jay White from going to the finals. And then he beat Jay White last year for the Never title at the Battle in the Valley in San Jose. The only time Jay's beaten Ishii is 2021 at Castle Attack. So Ishii going in with the momentum here. And like you mentioned, if anybody was going to beat Jay White, it could have been Ishii.
Yeah, and I mean, we talked last week about how, during the Taichi match, Ishii didn't let Taichi kind of settle into a lot of his tendencies and different patterns. He kind of forced the matter, forced him to wrestle his match, Well, a lot of that same sort of thing happened here with Jay White, where, Jay tried to stall. He tried to go on the outside, powder, and yada, yada, yada. Ishii wasn't really having that. Nevertheless, Jay and Gato were still able to employ cheating tactics, distracting the referee. There was one moment where Gato was on the outside. And he just out of nowhere fucking blasted Ishii with a chair. He threw the chair from a distance at his head. And it was done so well because I forgot Gato was out there.
Right, because they had at the beginning of the match, Ishii was telling Jay get rid of Gato. He's like, okay,
right.
And so he sat Gato pretty much in that crowd area behind the railing on a chair.
Bro, when Gato talks in character, he's like, "Thank you, champ."
Yeah, dude, Gato freaking cracks me up.
Bro, he cracks me up. He's like, "Okay, I'll relax. I want you right here, no problem. Thank you, champ." It's the best.
Yeah.
And then he's like, "What happened?"
He's like, "I was sitting right here. What happened?"
I was sitting right here. Ishii's whole head is busted. He's just on the ground. He's like, "Whoa, what happened?" But so they use that tactic, and that kind of shifted the momentum. But from that point on, for the most part, that was early on, and that kind of gave Jay an edge to kind of catch up with Ishii, who was kind of streaking early on in the match, and from there it became a much more even affair. But this match was great. Easily match of the night, one of the best matches of the tournament. I think for many people, this is going to be their match of the tournament so far up to this point. And these guys just showcased the same kind of intensity and chemistry that they've showcased many, many times before. They played off a lot of the big spots and matches and finishes that they've had before. The closing sequence was insane. This match is great. Really, really good.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, called back to 2020 G1 where Ishii had defeated Jay White in kind of that same sequence, but Jay was able to reverse the brain buster there. They had a great spot where they were exchanging sleeper suplexes. Like Jay was doing it to Ishii, and then Ishii out of nowhere got the sleeper suplex on Jay, which was kind of a cool moment in the match.
Yeah, Jay was kind of dropping him on his head for real.
Yeah.
But there's a little. They both traded top rope suplexes with one another, which was nuts.
Yeah.
That was crazy. I also liked there was a little bit of that where they're both doing the same thing to each other. So the famous spot that Ishii does, he gets a guy in the corner, he gives him the elbow and then the chop and the elbow and the chop. And then at a certain point, Jay White got sick of it. He started doing the same thing to Ishii in the corner, and then Ishii reversed it, and then he gave it back to him even worse. So there's just a lot of hard hitting intensity here. These guys were really working pretty fast paced action.
Yeah. So yeah, towards the end, Ishii was going for the vertical drop brainbuster. Jay slips out and hits the Blade Runner. 1, 2, 3, gets the win, and Jay White remains undefeated in the B block. He's now up to 4 points.
Yeah, and that puts Ishii in a really precarious position because that's his second consecutive loss in the tournament. And it does not, at this point, feel like he has a shot of getting that potential. We don't even know if he's going to get it, but that potential Naito booking of okay, I'm going to come back from this because, we'd already heard rumors that Ishii was on the chopping block, might not even been in this year's G1 anyways. And now that he's 0-2, it's you think he's going to go, undefeated for the rest of the tournament? Seems highly unlikely. And even if he does, that's something we haven't really touched on. For some of these guys that are favored, like Okada in A block and Jay White in B block, when you lose to them, if they're not your only loss in the entire block and you wind up let's say going undefeated the rest of the time and then you tie them, they're probably going to have the tiebreaker over you. So for a lot of guys, when they do lose to those individual wrestlers just early on, that's the death knell. It's it doesn't matter what you do the rest of the time unless something happens where those guys lose a few matches, you're gonna drop the tiebreaker to them anyways. That's pretty much the end of your tournament.
Yeah, Jeff Cobb is in that position right now in the A block. He lost to Okada, and so now he pretty much has to. He's in a spot where he pretty much has to win, like you said, all his matches, so that way he can at least have more points, or if it comes down to a tie, at least try to be somewhat even to maybe it comes off to a playoff or something. But he's going to really have to make sure he wins all his matches to be able to knock Okada out for winning the A block.
There was also a moment where Jay White hit Tomohiro Ishii with his own brainbuster as well.
Yeah,
match.
that was dope.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff here. Definitely a big recommend if you haven't seen it. Post-match, we got a question about it, but post-match, Jay White decided that he was going to cut a promo in Japanese for the fans. And then he called in one of the young lions to come in and translate for him. And then he proceeded to just clap rhythmically nonsense over and over and over again. And basically, this was him mocking the Japanese audience for not using their voices and not going against the mandates and not cheering and all that, where they're still just clap crowds. So, the guy's a heel and he's doing heel shit and it's working.
Yeah, it's funny. He called Oiwa in to translate. He's like, come in and translate to the people.
Yeah, this is the language you guys speak, right? You guys clap, right? That's your deal.
Yeah, I also think it was a troll on Kenny Omega, because that week, the Kenny Omega Japanese promo where he first cut his promo in Japanese was kind of going viral on the internet for some reason, and I think it might have been a little troll on that also.
Oh, it's exactly what it was. But in any case, that was his his show closing segment. So great promo from the champ.
Yeah, and ESJ in the Discord says, I think we're going to need an in-depth analysis of Jay White's post-match promo from his match against Ishii.
What he said was, there you go.
Yeah, don't you guys understand claps?
Don't you understand clapping? I don't.
There's not much to really dive into. I mean, I thought it was pretty, cut and dry what he was saying.
I understood it.
Yeah.
I got it.
So moving on to night 5, Sunday, July 24th. Show opened up. First tournament match was from the D block. El Phantasmo picking up his first win in the tournament. He defeats Yujiro Takahashi 15 minutes and 39 seconds with the Thunder Kiss 86.
Yeah, so the match starts off. Obviously, Yujiro is a quote-unquote Bull Club member, but he is also a sub-unit member of the House of Torture. El Phantasmo comes in as a Bull Club member. They do the whole too sweet, everything like that. Everything's, good. And Yujiro he propositions El Phantasmo. He says, you give me this win, let me get the 2 points, and I'll give you Peter for the night.
Yeah.
And El Phantasmo was thinking about it, and he's like, I'll take you up on that offer. They too sweet on it. They shake hands, gentleman's agreement. Peter looks very confused and kind of concerned about this arrangement that the gentlemen have made. And Yujiro tells El Phantasmo to lay down. Now, here's where you're getting played. El Phantasmo could have just forfeited the match and walked out of the ring and left with Peter, just remember all those times where Godfather gave people the opportunity? You could either wrestle me or I'll let you go home with the hose.
Yeah.
And they would leave and he would win the match.
Yeah, be a count out, yeah.
I don't understand why that Yujiro must not have watched the Attitude Era on Peacock. He must not have played WWF No Mercy for the Nintendo 64. Okay, when you play the branching storylines, that was always an option in intercontinental, branching storylines. So, so Yujiro basically was like, all right, well, let's have the match. You lay down for me, and he takes sweet time, lays on top of him. Phantasmo rolls him up, lets him know real quick, we're gonna have a real match, and then these guys had a bullshit laden cheat fest match. But even though the match wasn't great, it is Yujiro. ELP was awesome in the match.
Yeah, this is what I'm talking about when we're talking about the Finlay Yujiro match. ELP, yes, there were still the shenanigans and some cheating and the whole Peter thing, but ELP, when it came down to it, was working super hard. He hit an Asai moonsault in this match. He's bumping around. He's throwing super kicks. He's, doing all this high flying and working really hard. and having, a pretty decent matchup here with Yujiro.
Now, down towards the tail end, they started to really employ a lot of the House of Torture shit.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something we're starting to see throughout this tournament. It's not a storyline that's at the forefront. It's not like remember a couple years ago where it was really in your face, like, who's the real leader of Bullet Club? Is it Evil or is it Jay?
Yeah.
It's not like that. But we're seeing these matches between House of Torture and Bullet Club members, and it's kind of becoming this like sub storyline kind of in the background where these guys are not totally cohesive. They're not getting along, which is to be expected. And we're seeing the House of Torture guys come out and cheat for one another. And that was sort of what was going on here. You had, Show sort of try to interact and utilize the wrench, and freaking Phantasma was able to do the famous Eddie Guerrero spot where he clanked the wrench, threw it in Yujiro's hands, fell down on the ground, did the big sell. The referee sees it and then makes him get rid of it. When Yujiro turns around, boom, dick punch. And that was the big setup for the Thunder Kiss, which is what allowed ELP to get the win. And this is what I alluded to earlier when I talked about Tama Tonga sort of being able to anticipate and understand how to overcome the cheating ways of Chase Owens.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that on display here again with ELP against Yujiro. So these guys that are in the same factions, they kind of know each other's tactics.
Right, I'm sure, yeah, ELP knew that Show and these House of Torture guys were going to get involved somehow, so yeah, I was able to outsmart those guys, outwit them, like you mentioned, pull the Eddie Guerrero spot, he hits Tope on Show, clears Show out, hits Thunder Kiss 86, gets the win, and then after the match, ELP leaves with Peter.
Yeah, now, keep in mind, it was consensual. He gave her the option to go with him, and she obliged, and so they left together. And Yujiro was embarrassed and also just kind of shocked. He's on the ground holding his nads, looking on. His girl walks away with one of his mates, and
yeah, in the post match promo, ELP is like, you know what consent means, right? Consent.
Oh wait, what?
Like,
he said that to Peter?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I thought, okay. Let's back up.
Yeah.
I was laughing because I thought you were saying he was cutting a promo like that on Yujiro.
Oh, no. He was talking to Peter. He's like consent. You know what consent means, right? She's like, yes. And
That's kind of fucked up. I don't know if I like that.
And she's like, what does ELP stand for? He's like, whispers in her ear. And like walks off of her.
I don't know if I like all that. Oh man, but yeah, we had a question from Dark Soldier. He said, "Poor Yujiro. He loses his match, loses the function of his balls during the rest of the night, and he loses his girl. Also, does that mean that if someone beats Phantasmo, they now get Peter?"
Nah, I don't think that's how it works. Again, it has to be consensual. Like Peter has to agree to do this.
This is the king of sports, okay, not the king of human trafficking. So yes, no, you don't get someone as a slave or as a sex object just for defeating another person. I don't know if I like this whole Phantasmo. I know I'm not like the wokest person, but like, I don't know, it's a little iffy.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting to see if Peter kind of remains with Phantasmo throughout this tour or just going forward in the future. Like, I don't know,
man. Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, are they gonna be like a on-screen duo now? Like, I think if I was her, right, and I was looking at the upside of career trajectories, would I rather be on the arm of ELP and a valet to him as he's on his rise in the company, or would I like to stick with Yujiro and the House of Torture as his hoe?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like,
ELP definitely seems like the better option there.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next matchup here from the B block.
Also, I just want to say, like, some of the commentary too from like Charlton Kelly, I was like, you guys are playing fast and loose here.
Yeah. Like, y'all got wives. Like, what are y'all doing?
Like, we're not gonna get on TV with this content.
Yeah. Oh man. So moving on to the next matchup from the B block, we have the Cold Skull Sonata defeating Taichi with a O'Connor bridge, 16 minutes and 1 second.
I thought this match ruled. Yeah. I thought that this was you know how we always talk about, like, you don't know what Sonata you're gonna get, whether it's good or bad Sonata. We got good Sonata, like the motivated, like ready to play Sonata. And same thing with, well, Taichi's been game the whole tournament, so this is just another great match in, you know, it's only 2 matches, but so far what is a pretty stellar G1 resume for Taichi this year. And unfortunately for Taichi, he picks up a loss, so he's 1-1. But remember when I was talking about how in this tournament we're starting to see the elaborate reversals and crazy closing sequences? Nowhere else in the tournament was that more on display than in this match in particular. These guys just went round and round and round and round and round. And I mean, there was a lot of times where I thought the match was over. They kept doing false finishes and crazy reversals, and very hard fought match. There's a lot of allusions to both men's histories with All Japan, but different eras of All Japan and their training and upbringing and stylistic backgrounds. Chris Charlton did a great job there, but they went out there and they had a really hard-hitting, very technical, crazy match. I bought on a few of the different finishes. I thought there were many times where Taichi or Sonata could have won, but ultimately Sonata was able to use his technical acumen to get that roll up, that O'Connor roll. But great match.
Yeah, Taichi targeted the orbital bone of Sonata, who just recently came back from that broken orbital bone. So he was doing the Kawada kicks there, that the big like sumo strike there. He's targeting a lot of Sonata's eye, and Sonata's eye did look to get swollen by the end of the match. So yeah, Taichi was really working that over, and there was a cool spot where Taichi was going for that choke slam off the top rope, and Sonata flipped out, landed on his feet. And got a roll up from that until, like you mentioned, there's a lot of great reversals and near falls here between both of these guys. And then Taichi goes for the Black Mephisto, and then Sonata was able to flip out of that. And then Sonata once again gets the O'Connor roll there towards the end and gets the win over Taichi.
There was also a really cool spot where Taichi was looking for that Taue choke slam. He didn't get it. Sonata was able to get to the top rope, kick him off, and it looked like he was going to do some sort of like probably like John Woo drop kick, like that front style drop kick. And Taichi caught him and fucking choke slammed him off of it. It was really cool. Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff. This was hard hitting and very fast paced. Like, these guys are great. I can't recall them working together. I'm sure they have, but I can't recall them having a match this high caliber before. So, you know, you never, with Taichi, you kind of know what you're going to get, but with Sonata, sometimes he just turns it on and you're like, this guy, when he turns it on like this and he's doing the awesome planchas and he's like working at the top of his level, you're like, no reason this guy couldn't be like a top like 5 or 6 guy.
Yeah.
And then there's other nights where it's like, this guy does not belong.
Yeah. It's just one of those weird things that you don't know if he's going to come ready to go or not. But this night he was ready to go. He had his working boots on, had a really fun matchup here with Taichi.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next batch, semi-main event of the night, coming from the A block, we had Jeff Cobb defeating Bad Luck Fale 7 minutes and 13 seconds with the Tour of the Islands.
All right, so here we are. You want to talk about a bad match in the G1, an actual, truly bad match that deserves bad match ratings. We're here. No surprise, it is a Bad Luck Fale match, but remember how I talked about how hard-hitting and, you know, how these guys had put their work boots on in the Archer and Fale match? get rid of all that shit, because when Cobb and Fale came out here, they phoned this in. Okay, this was a match that was truly deserving of a pretty bad rating, and it was sub 3 stars. But I haven't looked at the ratings. I bet you it's probably got a higher rating than the Fale match, because the finish was admittedly fucking awesome. Because even though the match was terrible, I don't know how Jeff Cobb got Fale up, and he hoisted that man's body and hit him with that Tour of the Islands, which is something I didn't necessarily expect. Obviously, he's very strong and he's capable of doing it, but seeing is believing. And yeah, once he hit that, it was game over, and it was quick and short and easy, and it was nice. But there was a lot of very, very bad, slow wrestling in this match where I was oh god,
a lot of stalling. Fale was doing like the surfboard thing, the Tongan massage parlor thing throughout the match a lot, and Cobb was kind of fighting from underneath. But then towards the end, Cobb first he suplexed Fale, and then immediately picked him up, like you said, and hits the Tour of the Island. So that was a cool spot. Crowd kind of gasped on that. And again, it was a very short, only 7 minutes, but also not the best thing here. But it was cool to see Cobb pick up Fale and spin him around, drop him with the Tour of the Island. So Cobb goes up to 2 points here. And like we were mentioning earlier, like he is on a kind of a desperation run here. Even though he's only lost one, he's lost to Okada, who we know is probably not going to eat many losses here and hasn't ate a loss yet. So if he wants to win the block, he's going to need to win everything else and hope that Okada loses some matches too.
Absolutely. Now, just to kind of give you an example of what I'm talking about here, this match got 4.60. That's probably, in my opinion, probably a little too high. That's like above. I would probably go like 2 stars. I don't know what you gave this match.
I think I went 2 on it. Let me see. Yeah, I went 2 on it.
Right. That's what I would give it. So, that's pretty bad. The cage match users went a little higher on it. Fale Archer, they went 3.72. Now, I know we're splitting hairs here, but in my opinion, give me the hard-hitting, crazy match with the aerials and the chairs on the outside and a bad finish any day over whatever the fuck this Fale Cobb match was. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Either way, just give me a G1 with no Fale.
I didn't want to mention it because I haven't done it yet, but I did want to, I know that it's always been kind of my idea for them to do this 4 block, but what they're doing is not what my intentions ever were when I first initially kind of suggested it.
Right. And yeah, I don't think the problem is 4 blocks. Is some of the guys are in here. Like, why is Fale in here? Why is Yujiro still in here? Like, you have companies who are begging to give you guys,
right.
People want Jake Lee in, they wanted T-Hawk in. Like, all these companies, like, yeah, here, take our guys. I'm sure there were other AEW guys who wanted to come in. Like,
right. What I was thinking we could do, or maybe I could do, is like, what if I got rid of the 8 guys that I think shouldn't be in this and then just came up with my best scenario A and B block and see what that would look like on paper. Obviously, it would probably look a lot better than what we're getting so far.
Yeah. So moving on to the main event of this evening, came from the C block. The ace, Hiroshi Tanahashi, defeats Tetsuya Naito 22 minutes, 22 seconds with an inside cradle.
Yeah, man. So something I kind of alluded to earlier, Naito loses the first night to Goto, unexpected. But then he comes in against Tanahashi, who has also lost his first match of the night against Aaron Henare. So they both come in here with a single loss. And we already talked about how detrimental 2 losses in this tournament is. And these are 2 of the biggest names in the C block facing off against one another. Lots of history, main event. This is a pretty important match in the trajectory of this tournament, undoubtedly. And I think a lot of people, just based on the stakes involved, probably would have expected Naito to pick up the win here. Unfortunately, it was not to be, and Tanahashi picks up the win. So that puts Naito in a very, very precarious spot where it's like, at this point, He needs to win every match for the rest of the tournament, and he needs Goto and Tanahashi to lose a certain number of matches, which I think is feasible. And he needs the math to just work out 100% perfect in his favor. Now, we've seen him go on comeback storylines in the G1 not even that long ago. So I don't think that it's unreasonable to believe that this is the 2022 four-block version of Gato's miracle comeback storyline. He likes to do those in the G1. It's not unreasonable to think that that's what's happening here, but it's also very possible that we've got Naito in a position where it's like, even if he wins the rest of the tournament matches, he's done already.
Yeah, however, though, I do think that Naito is in a better spot than Jeff Cobb, even though Cobb has only lost one time so far. Because like you mentioned, the two guys that he's lost to now are Goto and Tanahashi. We know it's very plausible for Goto to eat a bunch of losses going forward. And for Tanahashi, like we mentioned in the preview, his point total has been dipping year over year. And he lost to Aaron Hanare in the opening of this tournament. So Tanahashi's at a state where he can pretty much lose to anybody. So I think Naito isn't in a... Also, he's going to have to win his next 4 matches, but I think he has a better shot of winning the block, even though he has 2 losses.
A couple of years ago, these two guys had a match in the G1 that was one of the best matches of the year, one of the best matches of the G1, and like an all-time classic, and it was unexpected. This year, these two guys faced off as recently as the New Japan Cup, and it was a severe disappointment, sub 4 stars, very below par for what they kind of put out there. In my opinion, this was a very good match. I think that this kind of splits the difference between the expectation of those two types of matches. I'd probably go somewhere between 4 and 4.25, I suppose, but they really played off a lot of the, there's a lot of history between Tanahashi and Naito. They played off on that quite a bit. There was a point in the match where Tanahashi started to kind of dip into the black hat version of Dick Tanahashi, which is something I appreciated. The one spot, namely, was where he was on the top rope. No, I'm sorry. He's got his opponent laid out prone in front of him. He's on the second rope, and that's usually where he does the pose, does the forward senton flip, and instead of doing the senton flip, he just jumps down and stomps on Naito's bad knee.
Yeah.
and everyone booed it because it's like, this man has bad knees. He's got a bad wheel. You kind of know what that means. And then he starts hitting him with like dragon screws. I don't know. And it's like, oh, okay. And bro, this is the thing. Remember, I don't remember who we were doing the review with, but we were doing a review of The Forbidden Door. It was probably with Floyd, right?
Yeah, with Floyd, yeah.
And they talked about how Tanahashi had to be the face in that situation because he couldn't get the heat against Jon Moxley. And I was like, no. If this guy wants to get the heat, he can do it anytime he wants. That was on full display here. He stomps on the guy's legs and he just slowly lifts his head up and the bangs are in his face. And he's got this look on his face. And it's like, bro, he can transform into... He's like Randy Orton. He can transform into the bad guy at any moment. He knows how to play it perfectly. And from that point on, like, he didn't go full heel, but he was definitely like teetering the line, kind of like how Bret Hart used to do. So good.
Yeah, there was a spot early on where he hits the tranquilo pose instead of doing the guitar strum.
Yeah.
So he definitely got a little bit of cocky Tanahashi here. So he was working over the knees of Naito, the dragon screws with the clover leaf, looking to get a submission win on the historically bad knees of Naito. But then Naito was working over the head and neck of Tanahashi. There was kind of a weird spot where he had that full Nelson crucifix with the legs on the outside of Tanahashi.
Yeah.
And like it got to like 19, and like you got to tell like Red Shoes held the count back a little bit so that they could like both get back in the ring.
Yeah. And you know what the thing with that is, even though I'm not a fan of all these count-out finishes, and there's going to be another one on the next show that we're about to review. So there's been a lot, like way more than any G1 in recent memory. Even though I don't like them, in a spot like this where they tease it, it becomes more plausible that it might happen. Because it's like, okay, they're doing a lot of them. Like, it might happen. And, you know, with the way that these blocks are turning out, like two guys that are both on losing streaks, and, you know, maybe the math calls for them to do a double count. You just don't know. You know what I mean?
Right. So, yeah, they tease that, but then Naito got him back in the ring, put back on the full Nelson with the legs there. So, yeah, working out throughout the neck. Tanahashi's working over the legs, and just a lot of great back and forth counters, kind of playing the hits, a lot of the great, you know, twist and shouts and Valencias and combination of Combrones and Sling Blades, are kind of doing all the kind of big moves towards the end there.
Well, one thing I noticed was Tanahashi was moving, like I've been mentioning on the show quite a bit, very rough. Like, even though he was still in there and he's working his ass off, very similar to the way he was trying to work super hard in the Jon Moxley match. You could just tell, like, he's a step off. He's a little bit slower. He's struggling. Then he goes into this section where he needs to hit Sling Blades, and it's like he's fucking Tanahashi. Sling Blade. And then like Naito feeds into another one, and it's like like we're not talking about like a delay of like Sling Blade, okay, and then he's like standing up. And we're talking like boom, boom, boom. Sling Blade, Sling Blade, Sling Blade. And I'm like, how is he rattling these off like this? When did he regenerate? Like, when did he go into a hyperbaric time chamber, and who gave him a fucking sensu bean?
I was going to say that, yeah, man ate a sensu bean.
It came out of nowhere. And, like, you know, we're seeing like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, one of the greatest fighters of all time. When he started hitting like the later years of his prime, he would like be looking bad, and then suddenly he would do something amazing, and it would be like a flash of what he was, and you're like, it's still in there. Like, that's what Tanahashi's like right now. Like, we're in that weird, like, kind of quasi phase. But like, then after he hit those Sling Blades, he was looking rough.
Yeah, he went up for the high fly flow, had a hard time.
It was taking so long for him to hit those high fly flows.
Yeah, he had a hard time getting his footing there. He went for it. Naito moved out the way. Naito hit that jackknife roll-up pin that he does for a great near fall there.
Well, you have to remember, that was an important spot, because during the New Japan Cup, that's how he beat Tanahashi, with that exact setup. Tanahashi hit the standing high fly flow, and then he went up to hit the proper one, missed, and that's when Naito hit him with the jackknife to pin him.
Yeah.
So that was a play off of what happened earlier this year, and this time Tanahashi kicked out.
Yeah. So then Naito followed up with the Valentina, and then he was going for the Destino. But then out of nowhere, Tanahashi.
Valencia?
The Valentina.
Is it called the Valentina? I thought it was called Valencia.
I think he has two. I think there is a Valencia, but there's also a Valentina.
Bro, I'm not the names guy when it comes to these. He hit him with the Northern Lights bomb. That's what he hit him.
Hit him with the snowplow.
He hit him with the snowplow. And again, he dropped Tanahashi on his dome, just like he dropped Goto. And like, they're close. Like, they're like in that Hashimoto, like Austin Aries. Like, I can't tell if he's really landing them or not. Maybe he's doing them so good that it's like he's perfected it, because it's like he's barely grazing it. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah.
Either that or he's blasting them.
Yeah, either way, it looks devastating.
It looks bad.
So yeah, then he goes for Destino, and then Tanahashi pulls the inside cradle, the flash pin. 1, 2, 3. Ace is on the board, 2 points, and like we mentioned, Naito, he's on the struggle bus now. He has to win his next 4 matches.
Bro, I rewound that roll-up counter into the small package 3 times to understand how he did it. I still kind of don't understand how he did it. It wasn't registering with my brain for whatever reason. But yeah, he did it. So, you know, fuck you, Naito. Fuck your knees. Fuck your life.
Bing bong.
Bing bong.
Oh, man. The Ace rolls on. Ace gets 2 points back on the board here, increasing his chances of winning this block. And Naito, the journey's on. He has to win the next 4 straight in order to win this C block. We had a question here from Mecha God Zuki. Has the dream of another Naito G1 been shot down?
No, I think he's still winning the block. I just think that this is a comeback story. If he loses the remainder of his matches, I would be surprised. Who does he have left in that C block?
Well, let me scroll down here to the rankings. So he faces Sabre on the last night.
Yeah, I was gonna say off the top of my head, the only guy that really poses a real threat is Sabre, and I think that's gonna be, he has to beat Sabre, and I think Sabre already beat him in the finals of the New Japan Cup this past year. That's gonna be his revenge, is by beating Sabre in the finals on the last night to win the block.
Yeah, he also has to face Aaron Hanare, who's somebody he could beat. He gets to face Kenta, which is
done. He's gonna beat Kenta,
and he also has to face Evil.
Oh, that's easy. This is a done deal. He's gonna beat all those guys.
Yeah, I think the path is set pretty clear for him to win these next 4 and get to the finals, or semifinals at least.
Nice. So let's talk about night 6.
Yep, so night 6 that aired this morning, Tuesday, July 26th, jumping to the tournament matches. First, from the B block, we had the Crown Jewel Chase Owens defeating the Great Okan with the package pile driver, 11 minutes and 58 seconds.
Interesting match. It wasn't something that I was like thrilled with, but it wasn't bad either. I thought that they did some good work here. The really interesting thing was how at the tail end, Chase was able to outsmart Okan and find an opening to hit the C trigger and hit the package pile driver. And it wasn't through really nefarious means. I mean, this is the closest thing to a clean victory Chase Owens could have possibly gotten over Great Okan. So, I don't understand why Lance Archer can't lose to Fale, but, Great Okan can lose to Chase Owens.
And this is the second time this year that Great Okan's lost to Chase, because he lost him at Capital Collision.
Yeah, maybe they're telling a story where Chase just happens to be a guy that has his number. I don't know. But it is funny. You always hear people be like, we've been saying it from day one, Great Okan. This company is heavily invested in Great Okan. He's going to be a top guy. And I'm like, he lost to Chase Owens twice this year.
Yeah, the booking is not leaning that way.
But I'm just playing. I still think that they got those plans in place. It's just, he lost to Chase.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the match, Chase did throw powder in his face, because as soon as he...
I forgot about that, yeah.
In the ring, as soon as he pulled off the question mark mask, Chase I want a gif of that. Chase just ran up real quick, threw the powder in his face, and then got the advantage from there.
Bro, I've thrown powder in my eyes many times. It doesn't do shit. And if you're wondering why I did it, it's to see if it works, and it does.
This man powdered himself. But yeah, so Okan was kind of fighting from underneath after the powder shot. But then, like you mentioned, Chase was kind of able to outsmart Okan, hit the C trigger, and hit the package pile driver to get the win here. So Chase has Okan's number this year. He's beaten him twice. They've also had the feud with the tag titles of Okan and Cobb against Chase and Fale. So Chase here picking up 2 points. And this was Okan's first match of the tournament. We're 6 nights in, and this was only Okan's first tournament match. So not in too bad a shape. He can still reel off 4 or 5 wins and end with a decent point total. So moving on to the next match from the C block, we had Evil defeating Kenta via count out, 10 minutes and 13 seconds.
Yeah, every now and again, I'll be listening to a podcast, or I'll be reading up what people in forums or different fan groups are saying. And one of the recurring themes, one of the recurring storylines and hopes and wishes that I see from these fans is I can't wait till we get this Bullet Club Civil War. I can't wait till we see Bullet Club proper face the House of Torture. And I just think to myself of the various matches that could possibly be taking place between Evil, Yujiro Takahashi, and who else is in that group?
Dick Togo and Sho.
Dick Togo, Sho, and Yujiro Takahashi, and then I think of who they could be facing in the Bull Club, and Fale, And I feel like this match is a prime example for why I could not give a single fuck about a Bullet Club Civil War. The only way I would care about a Bullet Club Civil War is if you souped up House of Torture somehow with, like, I don't know, somehow you got Kenny Omega, Fergal Devitt, and AJ Styles to join House of Torture. So they can come and fight the rest of the Bullet Club. I don't know.
That sounds so absurd. Can you imagine Kenny Omega, Prince Devitt, and AJ Styles wearing House of Torture shirts?
I can't think of, just think of how bad the matches would be. And so, like, this match is a prime example for why something like that would probably really suck. 10 minutes, 13 seconds, Evil and Kenta. Now, here's the thing. The work wasn't all bad. They're actually, you know what? I try to be optimistic. There was one thing from this match I did like. Evil started to kind of express a sort of very sadistic, anarchist sort of energy. It kind of reminded me of what some of the heels of the 70s and 80s in New Japan and All Japan used to do, sort of like I don't know, like Singh or the Sheik or like Abdullah the Butcher, those guys who kind of like would use nefarious. See, one of the things I haven't liked about Evil is like Evil has kind of done some like chicken shit cheating, and then he uses all his goons to cheat for him. But in this one, he was really using a lot of like kind of like hardcore heelish crazy tactics on the outside himself, which was something I actually did like. And I think he was kind of doing a little bit of that during the Hiromu feud as well, which is something I like. If he could kind of start to trend more into that avenue of his wrestling, I don't know if I'd be as down on Evil as I have been. I sure don't want to see him in the main event, but that was one positive. But for the large part of this match, there was a lot of comedy, there was a lot of interference, there was lights out, there was show, there was Dick Togo, there was no garrotes, but it doesn't matter. There was just so much bullshit in this match that, like, it wasn't enjoyable. It wasn't good. It was like a microcosm of the things that have been bad with New Japan for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of infiltrating this G1 in a very negative way, and it just kind of happened here again. And then we got another count out. It sucked.
Yeah, this match was straight trash. I know people are enjoying the whole Kenta plugging his book in the backstage promos, and that was a big part of this match, him trying to plug his book of Evil, a copy of his book, and Evil like knocked it out of his hands and like ripped it and all that funny haha. But to me, like, it was funny in the backstage promo. I really didn't care for it here in the match. You had Show turning the lights out. You had Dick Togo was the one that grabbed Kenta's legs as both of them were trying to break the 20 count. So that's how the count out happened, with Dick Togo holding on to Kenta. So yeah, it was just all pretty lame, pretty whack. Like, again, like I was saying earlier, this is the G1. I want.
Sorry.
This
is funny.
I want great matches. I don't want to, like, you know, if Evil wants to do this stuff, fine. Keep it in the never 6-man title division. Keep it on that low card, undercard stuff where it's light, funny, and it's whatever. But when you come out here in what's supposed to be the greatest tournament in pro wrestling history, and you're coming out here and doing the lights out and doing, choking with the shirt, and Dick Togo's coming out and Chill's coming out, and you're playing around for a book and you're doing all this, comedy stuff, like, no, this does not belong in this tournament whatsoever. And yeah, this was just.
Here's one thing I will say. Okay, what's the Stardom tournament that's coming up?
The 5-star Grand Prix.
Okay. So, if you guys listen to One Nation Radio, I don't know if you do. If you don't, you definitely should, because they're one of the best podcasts on this network. And every week, James Boyd and Rich Latta talk about Stardom. Now, I always listen to it, even though I don't know what the fuck they're talking about. The same way I listen to them talk about music and sports, not like fake sports, but shoot sports. And I don't know what they're talking about, but I still listen anyways because they're my friends. But there's a reason they call James Boyd Dr. Joshi, okay? And by they, I mean me. I'm the one who came up with that. There's a reason I call him Dr. Joshi. It's because that's his shit. Like, he loves Joshi wrestling. And he's been ridiculing me, and I've been no-selling, but he's been ridiculing me with a tweet that Stardom put out about how the 5-Star Grand Prix is the greatest tournament in all of wrestling. And they put it out like a couple weeks before the G1 came out. And he was like, see, this is foreshadowing. They already knew. They already knew that, like, this is going to be the year that the G1 is going to be down and, like, that they're going to take over this shit. And I've literally not responded or reacted to it in any way because I've just been thinking in the back of my mind, like, we'll see. We'll see.
It's funny. Dude, Hatman Rasta, he looked at the G1 lineup. He's like, oh, they got Yujiro in here? They got Fale in here? David Finlay? Hanare? Send a tweet. Send a tweet.
So I've been, and now with this kind of bullshit, I can't respond to it. I can't be like, oh yeah, James. I have to just eat it. The only reason I feel comfortable talking about it is because I don't think he regularly listens to our show, so I feel fine talking about this. But like, every couple of days I see him like reshare that fucking tweet in response to how things are going with the G1, and I'm like, bitch.
Oh man, I was like, yeah, it's rough.
Fucking playing with my ratings, lowering the average.
Yes, and ratings, takes, and opinions they're not a game.
They're not a game.
And right now, Gato he's playing around with the ratings right now.
Yeah, bro. What the fuck? Remember a couple of years ago we were complaining just because, like, I don't know, because like actually that was pretty bad. I was gonna say, like, I was gonna compare the time when the Bullet Club split and like Fale and Tamatonga and Jay White were kind of wrestling down and ruining the G1, but then I remembered like that was pretty bad too. So
it was, but I feel like you had some more.
We had a fire beat block.
Yeah.
So it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's move on to the main event, which actually was great.
Well, hold on. We got to do this. The semi-main event from the A.
I skipped it. My bad.
From the A block, the Murder Hawk monster Lance Archer defeating Filthy Tom Lawler with the blackout.
So this was good. These guys have never worked together before, right?
Not that I can recall. Maybe Warrior Wrestling, but I think this was a first-time matchup. Yeah.
This one was interesting because it was Tom Lawler's very first G1 matchup, period. And, we've talked about the irregularity of the schedules. And so like Tom Lawler doesn't have another match if based on what I heard on commentary for like another 7 days. So win or lose, that's probably a little bit more inactivity than you want.
Yeah, Lawler's next match is Saturday.
Okay, so it's not quite 7 days, but there's still that's a lot of time. And so the win is really important for him, not just because wins are important, but also because that momentum. And I thought him and Archer told a great story. Unfortunately, Tom Lawler wasn't able to beat Archer, but we've seen instances in the past where Tom has been able to use his technical acumen and his, stuff, his tough, rugged, like shoot style wrestling to kind of even the score against bigger opponents. And that seemed to work for the most part. But ultimately, his inexperience in this type of environment and tournament, it was his undoing. And at the same time, Lance Archer is kind of streaking. He had a great showing in the first match, even though he lost the count out. He was pretty much dominant, and he was, pretty dominant in this match as well. I didn't think this was like blow away, but it was a good first tournament match for Tom Lawler. I probably went 3.5 stars here, but I'm kind of like deep down, like as a New Japan Strong fan, kind of rooting for Tom Lawler, even though I don't think he's going to get very many wins. But I was hoping he'd get a win over a guy like Archer here, and maybe, I don't know, have some sort of claim to show up on AEW one day. I don't know,
Yeah, as a strong fan and somebody that we've been watching Philly Tom, yeah, I kind of wanted him to win. I was a little pissed that Archer won. Like, I get it, like Archer's facing Okada in the last night, and it's going to set up to where Archer's going to be alive going into the last night. But I really wanted Philly Tom to get a big win. He's doing a great job on the undercard in this tour. Like, he's so over with the crowd now. Like, the Corkin crowd, as soon as he came out, they were doing his clap cadence, and they were really into him. They're into the big, like, pants reveal thing. Like, they're really digging him and Royce Isaac. So, crowd's digging him. He's getting over. He's having, fun matchups on the undercard. This is his first tournament match, which was pretty good. So, yeah, I'm digging Filthy Tom in Japan. And, yeah, hopefully, this is going to open the doors for him to do bigger and better things here. But with him being the longest reigning strong openweight champion, and like they mentioned on commentary, he won that by winning the tournament and defeating Brody King in the finals. So another big guy, he was able to kind of, like you mentioned, use his shoot fighting background and take on a big guy like Brody King. So it's kind of plausible he could take out a guy like Archer, and he's been using that the nasty knee on the brain, which we failed to mention the new kid on the blocks reference.
Because I'm an idiot, I didn't pick up on that. And then after the show was over, like someone reached out, I don't remember who, but they were like, "It's New Kids on the Block." I'm like, damn it. Like, and I think he came out to New Kids on the Block on the indies, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And also he's been using the old Dean Ambrose Dirty Deeds, but he's been calling it the Meat Sizzler, which was the name that EC3 used in FCW because he was the originator of the Dirty Deeds.
Gotcha.
But yeah, fun matchup here. Archer was able to overpower Filthy Tom, get a win here. So yeah, hopefully Tom picks up some wins in this tournament. I would hate to see him be like 1-5, especially after how hard he's been pushed in New Japan Strong. And
I like Royce Isaacs as his heater too.
Yeah, I think that was the right choice to go with.
Kind of comes out there, and I like how he's like, he looks kind of ridiculous, so it sort of fits the filthy like aesthetic, like sort of almost. He came out this night with like cheetah and purple on, and just like a fucking, kind of a geek, but also like a badass at the same time. Like that's what Team Filthy is sort of about, anyways.
Yeah, he had a little involvement in this match, but Archer kicked him in the face and chokeslam Tom onto Isaacs there, and then got him back in the ring, and that led into the closing sequence going for the blackout.
Yeah, and for better or for worse, one thing I really do like about Filthy Tom in these different tournament nights, I know it's only the first night, but this had a whole different feel than anything else that we've seen in the tournament so far. And that's because that's the style of wrestling that he works. And, we would get that sometimes with like your Suzuki or like your Ibushi match, sort of that like shoot element. And those guys aren't in the tournament. So that's kind of been a missing thing so far from this year's G1. And now it's sort of restored to a certain extent with Tom Lawler matches. So I like seeing those sorts of hard-hitting strikes and crazy like submission exchanges sort of worked back into the tournament. So welcome addition for sure, and wasn't disappointed here.
Yeah, definitely fun matchup. I also went 3.5 stars on this one. So moving on to the main event of the evening that came from the D block, we had David Finlay, the Rebel, defeating Rock Hard Juice Robinson. 24 minutes and 1 second. Big main event here in Corkin Hall. We know the history between these two guys. Obviously, former tag team partners. These guys have won the World Tag League together. They're former IWGP World Tag Team Champions. Prior to this match, they had 3 singles meetings in their history, with Juice winning all 3 of them in 2016, back when they were in the openers of cards, when they were in that young lion phase. So much history here between these two guys, and we know going back in April to Windy City Riot in Chicago, the night that, Juice worked the world. He was saying he's going to retire, and there was this whole kind of send-off for him. And then he came back and turned heel and joined Bullet Club. Now, he didn't directly turn on Finlay, but clearly kind of, ignored Finlay's calls, joined the Bullet Club, went heel, and just kind of left Finlay high and dry. And so that all sets the stage here for this kind of big one-on-one meeting.
That's what you did to me when you got engaged. Pretty much.
I turned heel.
Yeah, you stopped accepting my phone calls. Stop checking in with me. I like when you check in. So anyways, but yeah, like you kind of mentioned, just a lot of background between these two individuals, obviously. And one thing that was like in the past with Dave Finlay, like the one kind of reoccurring feud that he had in New Japan that had sort of been playing out was his feud with Jay White. And in earlier years, that had been very compelling. They'd done great business in, like, say, Corkin, which was where this match was set. And that feud has kind of run its course, especially once they did the show in LA where, like, they got little to no reaction. It got just kind of beat like a drum. And it was like, all right, that feud's sort of over. So, we're at this point now with Dave Finlay. Like we mentioned, it's his first G1. He really needs to make a name for himself. He needs the right opponent to kind of make an impact and sort of establish a rivalry against. That Jay White thing is done and kind of totally gone. Like the levels of their careers are so imbalanced at this point. It's not even fair for them to even be having matches until potentially Dave Finlay, elevates himself. And I think that's what they were trying to do here with him and Juice. Like you mentioned, obviously there hasn't been a lot of on-screen turmoil because it didn't play out on screen, but you can infer what probably occurred between these two guys just based on the long recent history of this tag team. And now they're split, and now their ideologies are different, and now their goals are different, and now they're facing off in Corkin in a major, major spot. And they talked about on commentary how when they had faced off in the past, that Dave Finlay said, nobody has ever hit me as hard as Juice Robinson. And that was, they mentioned they're like, and that's when they were like mates, when they still got on, is the way that Chris Charlton put it. So,
yeah,
you can imagine how much more so that might be now that they're enemies. And that was on full display. Like, this was a pretty hate-filled match. Aside from the Zach Kenta match, this might be the second, what I would consider most, like, enmity, like, sort of filled match where there was just a lot of spite and kind of nastiness.
Yeah, this was a very, like, gritty, very, like, hard-hitting matchup. Like you said, you can feel the animosity between both guys. Very hard-hitting, a lot of brawling to the outside, throwing into the guardrails. Mm-hmm. Juice took the mats on the outside up to expose the hardwood floor, which he ended up eating a back body drop on. And then later on in the match, he gave Finlay a pile driver on the exposed floor, which got a nice, gas from the crowd.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that Juice did a great job in this match, kind of stooging off for Dave Finlay quite a bit, like really selling. Like he sold a lot as a babyface before, but it was like kind of like that tough guy selling. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm dying so I can be extra, like, extroverted about what's happening to me. And he's using these high-pitched squeals and screams.
Yeah,
and
he's like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and begging off and just kind of being a fool about it. And Dave Finlay's not even like feeding into it at all. Like he's just got this like badass, like, demeanor about him the entire time. So there was kind of a big contrast between the way they were approaching the match. But one thing that pissed me off really, really pissed me off. It was like towards the tail end of the match. They gone through hell and back. It had this classic war. And Dave Finlay hits the springboard stunner off of the second rope, the same move that he used last year in the New Japan Cup to beat Jay White. And it's like, oh my God, he landed it out of nowhere. He's got Juice finished. And then he like kind of like while pinning him, pins the inside leg instead of the outside leg and pushes him towards the ropes. And it's like, I get it. I know this has got to happen. I've seen it a million times, but I'm like, just fucking grab the right leg, you idiot. And then Juice puts his foot on the ropes, and I'm like, you idiot. You know, the anti-Tama Tonga, the dumb baby face, the Sting, if you would.
Yeah, that was close to their fault there because, yeah, the same sequence that he used in the New Japan Cup. So, yeah, I thought that was going to be the win there. But, yeah, Juice gets his foot on the rope. We did get a ref bump towards the end here. Initially, when it happened, I was like, oh, boy, here we go.
In fact, I feel like this still, even though the match was great, it did detract a little bit from the match for me still.
Yeah, I don't think the ref bump was necessary, but it wasn't as egregious as some of the stuff that was happening in like the Evil matches or stuff like that.
But just the fact that we've been getting so much of it in the tournament and then get fed a little bit, even though it's less egregious, it's just more of the same. It's I still didn't like it a little bit.
Yeah, so there was a ref bump, and then Juice grabbed the U.S. title. He was going to hit Finlay with it, but Finlay grabbed the shillelagh, which he's been carrying around for a couple months now, and he went to hit Juice. Juice blocked it with the belt, but Finlay knocked the belt out of his hands with the shillelagh, hit Juice with the shillelagh, went for the pinfall, got 2 count. He lifted Juice up before the 3, hits him with the Trash Panda, which is that brain buster to the knee, and he gets a big win here in the main event, Cork and Hall. He's able to beat Juice Robinson here, and so kind of big win for Finlay.
Yeah, there was also during the match a lot of exchanges revolving around Juice hitting him with the right hand of God and sort of like getting the hand injured. He couldn't land it, then he had to throw it with the left, and then he was able to land it with the right.
Other way around, the left hand got hurt, and he had to throw it the right.
I knew it was something like that. And then from that point, like he landed it a few different places. There was one really impactful spot where Dave Finlay did a flying nothing to the outside.
Yep. And
you always know they're gonna get caught when they're doing a flying nothing, where like it's like, what hypothetically, if you had landed that, what would that have been?
Right. You just kind of like hurled your body in the air.
I just jumped in the air with no intention to get punched in the face. Okay. But yeah, he does the flying nothing, and he lands the right hand of God. That's pretty raw. So there was some great stuff in this match. The moment where Juice got hit with the shillelagh and he's laid out, and Dave Finlay goes for the pin, and then he raises his head up. I'm like, you stupid son of a bitch. I was like, you're gonna lose the match now. And I was like, it figures. It's Dave Finlay. It figures. But then he still won, and I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess they need to give him a stronger visual pin. All right. So he wins the match. That's all cool. Gets on the mic and he says, whatever claim to this U.S. title you think you might have had, you now lost it. I got the belt now. And I'm like, what? Wait, what? And now, and he left with the belt. So, we're going to hear from Ospreay on this whole thing, but I'm like, what? Like, at the end of the tour, it's supposed to be, Juice and Ospreay again. And I assumed that the quote unquote U.S. title was going to be, somehow involved. Clearly, we still have a Dave Finlay Ospreay match coming up. And who knows? I don't have confidence that Dave Finlay's not going to drop a loss to someone between now and the time he wrestles Will Ospreay.
Right.
Is this red strap just going to keep getting passed around, unofficially throughout the D block until, the end of the tournament? Like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I guess so. For me, I'm like, why hasn't Ospreay come out and grabbed the belt? Like, he's on every show. Like, these guys are busy wrestling. Like, if you want the belt back that bad, just walk out and grab it.
Bro, there's a better question than that. Why hasn't the International Wrestling Grand Prix just awarded him a new red belt?
Or why hasn't there been somebody sent to get the belt from Juice and give it back to Ospreay?
I mean, the whole notion that the belt is the title is incorrect. The belt is a representation of the title. The title is the title. The title holder right now is Will Ospreay. He's the champion. Just give him a new fucking belt.
You know, times are hard, man. Inflation, they don't want to spend all that money on a new belt.
Well, then just have someone come take the belt from whoever. Be like, especially with it being Dave Finlay, just be like, all right, David, we need the belt back.
Good win, kid. Hand it over.
Yeah, Will's gonna need that belt back now. You know, one thing I like about Will Ospreay, I like that he's the United States champion and he's the British champion. You know, It kind of reminds. That's very George Hackenschmidt, Frank Gotch to me. You know, he's unified the two continents.
Ospreay, the bridge between two worlds.
Yeah. He has the claim of being the champion of those two great nations. I mean, he might be world champion, basically.
Yeah.
Depending on how you look at it.
Maybe he's the real All-Atlantic champion.
He might be the real All-Atlantic. He might be the real intercontinental champion, if you think about it.
Yeah. So good main event here. Big win for David Finlay in the main event. I had a question here from Key Director 3748. Is Juice Robinson's move to Bullet Club actually good for his career in the short term? I feel at best it's a lateral move in the hierarchy of New Japan, and he probably has more people between him and a world title run than he did as a face. He went from probably the number 2 guy not in a faction to possibly the number 4 guy in Bullet Club behind Jay, Evil, and Kenta.
No. No, that's not an accurate depiction of what has occurred here or what his trajectory or standing within the company was prior to this move. Juice Robinson was a guy that at best did sub 500 in the G1 every year and sometimes did less than that. The number 2 guy, I don't even know what that means. The number 2 guy not in a faction. Well, let's be clear. He was in a faction. The faction was Hantai. And he was like pretty low on the Hantai totem pole. I mean, he had Kota Ibushi above him.
Tanahashi.
Hiroshi Tanahashi. And even if those were the only 2 guys above him, which I'm not convinced they are, they're the only 2 that need to be above him because he's not passing those 2 guys. I mean,
right.
In what world is Juice Robinson, the flamboyant Juice Robinson, defeating or surpassing Hiroshi Tanahashi and Kota Ibushi? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the last time that Juice Robinson was relevant as a singles competitor was in 2018 or 2019 when he was wrestling Cody Rhodes for the U.S. title, and Mox.
Yeah, like we said many times on this show. Yeah, the Jon Moxley match kind of killed all the momentum that he had.
Well, I mean, technically, Mox is Hantai too. So you got Mox, Tanahashi, and Kota Ibushi above him. That's 3 guys. Like that's not a good place to be. Within Bullet Club, I'm not convinced. I know that your gatekeeperish Pearl hardcores are going to believe at this standpoint that Evil and Kenta are ahead of him in the pecking order of Bullet Club. And maybe, technically, there may be some truth to that. But I'm not convinced that they're going to be above Juice Robinson for much longer, or that they're not already on the same equal level playing field as him right now. When was the last time that either of those 2 guys were put in a 4-way on a major main event pay-per-view card and defeated Jon Moxley, Tanahashi, and Will Ospreay? Never is the answer to that.
Yeah, I feel like this has definitely been an elevation for Juice.
A huge elevation.
Yeah, I know even though he's still going after the U.S. title, you look at kind of the trajectory where he was at. He was stuck in the Finn Juice tag team. just kind of doing stuff on Impact, doing stuff on Strong. Like, his stock plummeted a lot over the last couple of years. And now he's on the rise. And you look at Evil, who pre this tournament's kind of been stuck in the never 6-man division. Kenta, he's been off pretty much this whole year after getting wrecked by Tanahashi at Wrestle Kingdom. And I don't feel like they've gone super hard with Kenta. He hasn't won a title. He won a never title, but that was kind of a short title reign. And they really haven't done much with him in that kind of direction for a title, really. I mean, he did have the red briefcase, but ended up losing the Mox. So I think Juice is in a very good position right now, and will, like you said, when the dust settles, will be higher than Evil and Kenta.
Juice has not been quote-unquote made just yet. It's not like he's an established, okay, he's here to stay, this is like a done deal sort of situation. It's not. It's still very precarious. It's still early days. It's, early goings. But it's still an elevation nonetheless. Just like Evil winning the world title a couple years ago was an elevation. It just didn't stick because he sucked. But Juice doesn't suck. And I do feel like we're seeing the early genesis of a career revitalization and elevation. And, the other thing too is like, yeah, you also have to keep in mind that like there's always that chase for being a relevant, top earning, drawing Gaijin star. And that's a little different too. And, that wasn't going to happen for him in Hantai where he was. And I can't imagine any other spot in the company. I mean, it was so much so people were calling for him to leave. They're like, you're done. His time in the territory is done. He needs to get out. He's passionless. He's listless. He's done. And now we're talking about a guy that could easily be the number 2 in the fucking Bullet Club.
Right.
So no, I vehemently disagree with all of this. And if I was him and I had Jon Moxley, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Kota Ibushi in front of me in the pecking order versus Kenta and Evil and Jay White, I'd take Bullet Club.
Yeah. And I think, not everybody is going to be the world champion. Not everybody should be the world champion. And I think he's going to be one of those guys that probably just never gets the world title. So I think it's better off for him to be a number 2 than just kind of be, muddling around a Hantai and not really doing much.
Who knows? Maybe he will be. I don't know. But this is going to give him the platform and the opportunity to see what he's really made of, which that was never going to happen where he was.
Yeah. So we have a couple other questions here related to the G1. First from Pumping Bomba. Says, do you think Kenta should use his backstage promos to talk more about his upcoming book, which will release on July 26th? So far, he hasn't promoted it at all.
Definitely.
Trevolution Now says, who has had the most entertaining post-match promos? Kenta, ZSJ, or Rock Hard Juice Robinson?
I haven't been watching them.
I saw the Kenta stuff of his book. I've seen a couple of the Sabres in Juice, but I would say probably right now, probably Kenta. I mean, Kenta's always kind of been the king of the backstage promos. Next question here from Zach Porter. What's been your favorite post-match interview so far, and why is it Kenta shilling his book in various ways? So yeah, again, I think, Kenta with the whole, acting like he's not putting the book over when he is putting the book over has been pretty funny in the highlight of the backstage promos.
I gotta say it's probably the best one, just based off the fact that that's the thing that's getting the most shares and attention. And even though I haven't been watching the promos, I've seen that one because everyone keeps sharing it to me. So
yeah. Ray and Bone Slam Pig says, is there anyone whose point standing is shocking to you at this early juncture?
Not really, for me personally. I mean, because of how spread out everything is, very few people have had more than 2 matches, and nobody has really lost 2 that I wouldn't expect in in their individual situation. I mean, even if you pointed at, say, Naito, it makes sense based on Gato's history of booking. Now, if Naito loses another one between now and the last night of the block matchups, then I would be shocked.
Yeah, I think right now it's definitely too early to be looking at the rankings and really analyzing it super deep, especially since, some people just had their first match today, like Great Okan and Filthy Tom Lawler. So yeah, it's kind of hard to look at the rankings and be surprised by point totals. I think, yeah, it's pretty fair right now. I think once we get another week of block action, I think we have a better picture of whose trajectory is going up and who's going down and what the point totals look like. He also asked, what has been your favorite match of the tournament so far? I would go with White Ishii or Naito Tanahashi, maybe Ospreay ELP or Taichi Ishii as close runner-ups.
What's your favorite match so far?
I think for me, it's probably the Taichi and Ishii match.
Yeah, I think for me, I think it's probably Kenta versus Zack Sabre Jr.
Yeah, that was a really good matchup.
I'm looking at Cage Match just to kind of see where they're, what they're looking at, what they're thinking. And so far, it looks like the highest rated match of the tournament. Looks like it's Jay White and Tomohiro Ishii at 8.64.
Another great matchup.
Yeah. And you said your favorite was Taichi and
Ishii. That's the only match I have at 4.5 right now.
Yeah, they got an 8.14, and they got the match I like at 8.42, a little bit above that. And then the other two that are notable that are high up there would be Shingo Yoshihashi, which I don't know. I really like that match. So, I could come around on that one. And then also Dave Finlay and Juice Robinson's pretty high. Also Okada Cobb's at 8.21. So quite a few, 4-star level matches in the tournament so far. So even though it hasn't been like just yet, like, holy shit banger, just, out there've been quite a few like 4-star level matches.
Yeah. Then last question here from Azurio says, if you had to pick your block winners now, who would they be?
I think it'd be the same as what we kind of discussed during the preview show. Like, for A block and B block, it looks like it's probably Okada White, but I have issues with that based on the fall title defense situation and everything like that. So I don't know, man. I'm struggling with that one still. I mean, I think the chalk answer, though, is going to be Okada, Jay White, Naito, and then probably, D block is a little bit more of a toss-up than I had originally anticipated. I had kind of thought that, like, Will Ospreay or Shingo were, like, your two obvious favorites for obvious reasons. I think that, like, Juice Robinson could maybe win that block, especially if they are elevating him. And that's not something I really discussed a lot during the preview, and I kind of overlooked. And then I also think ELP could be in play there too.
Yeah, he could be, yeah.
So D block is like the block that I'm having the hardest time actually predicting. I think I'm still going with I don't remember what I even predicted.
I think you went with Shingo to do a Shingo Naito semifinal.
I think that's because I think Will's going to lose to Juice.
Yeah.
And set up that big match between them. But, yeah, I think Shingo versus Naito makes the most sense to me still.
Yeah, I'll like to see either Shingo or Naito or Shingo and Will. But, yeah, I think right now kind of the people who people think are going to win are kind of the ones that are set up that way right now.
But I wouldn't be surprised if Rock Hard goes through.
He could, yeah. Especially want to establish him. You could do Rock Hard versus Naito. I think that would be a fun match.
It's just a block winner. It's not like the finals of the G1,
Right.
And I mean, it would be kind of boring if it was just Okada, Jay White, Naito, and then some other big name. It'd be nice if one of these blocks saw somebody kind of get elevated on some level.
Yeah. So the current standings going into this week: A block, Kazuchika Okada leads the block with 4 points. Then you have Yano, Fale, Cobb, and Archer with 2 points. Tom Lawler and Jonah with 0 points. In the B block, you got Jay White leading the block with 4 points. Taichi, Tamatanga Sonata, Chase Owens with 2 points. Great Okan and Ishii with 0 points. C block, you have Zack Sabre Jr. leading the block with 4 points. And Aaron Hanare, Goto, Tanahashi, and Evil with 2 points. Naito and Kento with 0 points. Then the D block, you have Ospreay, Robinson, Yujiro, Shingo, ELP, and Dave Finlay, all of 2 points. And Yoshihashi with 0 points. And then looking at the upcoming matches for this week. So on night 7, Wednesday, July 27th, from the D block, we have Yujiro versus Will Ospreay. From the A block, Yano versus Bad Luck Fale. From the C block, Goto versus Aaron Hanare. And the main event from the B block, Ishii versus Tamatanga. Then on Saturday, July 30th, from the D block, Shingo versus Finlay. A block, Jonah versus Tom Lawler. B block, Sonata versus Great Okan. And then the main event from the C block, Tanahashi versus Zack Sabre Jr. Then on Sunday, July 31st, night 9, we expand to 5 block matchups. So on the A block, we'll have Archer versus Cobb. From the D block, Yoshihashi versus Hughes Robinson. From the B block, Chase versus Jay White. From the A block, Okada versus Bad Luck Fale. From the C block, Naito versus Evil. And then the last night before we record again will be Tuesday, August 2nd, night 10. From the B block, Ishii versus Great Okan. From the A block, Yano versus Tom Lawler. From the B block, Sonata versus Tamatanga. From the C block, Kenta versus Hiroki Goto. And from the D block, Dave Finlay versus Will Ospreay.
Yeah, man. So Saturday, we have G1 action, plus we have Music City Mayhem, plus we have New Japan Strong, plus it's your bachelor party. So, like, I got other stuff going on that night, too, or that day. So I'm like, Saturday is crazy.
Yeah, it's literally jam-packed of New Japan. Going to try and watch some of that during the day before the bachelor party. Maybe have to do some catch-up on Sunday. But, yeah, it's going to be a weekend full of wrestling. But speaking of Music City Mayhem, we'll just go over that card real quick. So first, we got the ominous black and white lion mark logo. Clark Connors out with injury. He is going to miss Music City Mayhem, and he missed this past weekend's tapings in Tennessee for the High Alert Tour. So Clark Connors, he sustained a herniated disc in his back, and that's what has removed him from these shows. So replacing him at this past weekend's tapings was Blake Christian in that three-way with Hiromu and El Desperado. And then on the Music City Mayhem, he's being replaced by our good friend Rocky Romero. So the full card will have Freddie Yehai, Shota Umino, and Yu Uemura versus Kevin Knight, Ren Narita, and the DKC. Then there'll be an MLW National Openweight title match with David Richards defending against Rocky Romero. A strong openweight title match, Fred Rosser defending against Big Damo. Hiromu Takahashi versus Blake Christian. FTR teaming with Alex Zane to take on Aussie Open and TJP.
Team white males. Even though all the people involved are white males, only FTR and Alex Zane are team white males.
In the semi-main event, Alex Shelley will take on his time splitter partner Kushida. And then the big main event, no disqualification match, the Death Rider Jon Moxley versus El Desperado. What are your overall thoughts on this card?
It looks good. I wouldn't pay pay-per-view to watch this. When is it airing?
It is airing, I think it's like 3 or 4 p.m. Eastern.
Okay. And then later that night is SummerSlam. And then the next day is, Ric Flair's last match, a.k.a. He Might Die.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a interesting card. Again, I wish it's something that you could just watch on New Japan World or Access TV. But I think
it's a really cool card for sure. But I've kind of seen what some of these like produce level New Japan that they exist in their own like little universe. Pay-per-views are like, and they're very good. They're entertaining. But I also wouldn't pay pay-per-view money to watch it, just like I didn't want to, I didn't pay pay-per-view money to watch ROH this past week. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be a fun card. I mean, I think there's a potential for great matches between Mox and Despy, Shelley and Kushida, and Hiromu and Blake Christian.
Totally in agreement. And I do think it's interesting that they have a strong openweight title match, not on Strong, which I don't think they've done too much of that at all.
Yeah, they've never done that because we've complained that they have all these U.S. pay-per-views and Philly Tom never gets a singles match. He's always stuck in it.
He defended the title against Yuji Nagata the one time, remember?
Oh, yeah.
But for the majority of his title run, he didn't defend the title off Strong at all.
Yeah. Yeah, interesting first challenger, Big Damo. Not setting up roster with a great first challenger here.
Well, Damo, he's in the top 10 of New Japan Strong's power rankings. They come out with them weekly.
Yeah. So then real quick, we had night 3 of the Ignition Tour for New Japan Strong this past weekend. We had JR Kratos defeating Jordan Cruz in a 4-minute squash match. Dave Finlay, Mascara Dorada, and Rocky Romero defeating Adrian Quest, Lucas Riley, and Negro Casas in 11 minutes. And then the main event was the last semifinal match, actually the first semifinal match in the Strong Tag Team Title Tournament, with the Fallen Angel, Christopher Daniels, and Yuya Uemura pulling the upset victory over Mikey Nichols and Shane Hayes to advance to the finals.
Yep. So next week, New Japan Strong Ignition, night 4, Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern on July 30th. We have the matchups of Tanahashi, Fred Rosser, and Kevin Knight taking on Jay White, Hikuleo, and Chase Owens. There's a NJPW Strong Openweight Tag Team Tournament semifinal between Aussie Open and Stray Dog Army. And then singles matches between Fred Yehai and Bateman, as well as Jeff Cobb and Jordan Clearwater.
It's finding amazing that Tanahashi and Jay White and Chase and Cobb.
Don't do this. I thought to myself, I was like, we can make the how did they get here joke, but it's just been going for like 2 years and it's the same old hat. We tell this joke every week. We're gonna tell this joke into infinity forever. Oh my God.
So moving on to the news, there's some quick stuff here. Another black and white logo situation here with Vegeta. He suffered an injury. He missed today's Cork and Hall show, and he's going to miss tomorrow's Cork and Hall show as well. And so, yeah, and so they just said as a result of damage sustained in this match in Wednesday and Sendai, he's being removed as precautionary measures.
I never got hurt in my wrestling career.
That's true.
I take care of myself,
Last year saw New Japan Academy, the Magna that was chronicling the career of Tetsuya Naito, reimagined as a high school drama that was translated to English for the first time, that received great success with Volume 1, that's leading to a second installment of the saga coming out with another translation. Volume 2 will be available through Yen Press on August 23rd. El Lindemann will be defending the GLEAT G-Rex Championship against our man Doki on Wednesday, August 24th.
Counting down the days.
Yeah, that's going to be a dope matchup. Big opportunity for Doki there. And then Tiger Mask, Robbie Eagles, and our good friend Rocky Romero will compete in the CMLL International Grand Prix.
Yeah, I think that's like a Cybernetico match. And I'm not even, like, I've heard a lot about what Cyberneticos are, but I've never actually watched one, so I'm not totally sure how they really even work. But yeah, they'll be in it.
And then it's a few questions here. Then we'll do recommend the match of the week and wrap the show up. So Les Commission 7252 says, in y'all's opinion, who do you guys think was a top heel before Jay White in 2019? I would have to go with Cody, with him feuding with Kenny and Ibushi, two of Japan's top babyfaces behind Tanahashi. He defeated Ibushi in Japan and Kenny in the US, and there was also that certain time where he could have beat Kenny for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship in San Francisco and walked into G1 as champion. Was there anyone else that was above him as a top heel?
It's a pretty great question. I mean, I definitely think he was doing the best heel work, but he wasn't the top heel of the company. In ROH he was, and I think that probably translated well to like his standings in New Japan, but like I can't call him the top heel. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm trying to think who was on top as the heels in that time period. Suzuki?
Yeah, I was kind of thinking Suzuki, but like I have trouble with that as well.
Saber?
No, I mean, to a certain extent, I would just say Kenny. To be honest with you,
Well, I would say, yeah, leading into the Cody turning on him, yeah, he was kind of positioned as a top heel, but then once the turn happened, then he was babyface.
right? Like he didn't do the full heel turn until the Golden Lovers moment with Cody. Up to that moment, like I know he wasn't necessarily like the kind of heel that people like. He wasn't doing the kind of heel work that Cody was. Granted, but he was the top heel of the company from what I would gather, and I mean he was the big foil to Okada and to everybody else in the company. That's probably who I would say was the top heel.
Yeah. His next question: what New Japan wrestling time period would you guys visited or revisit?
What does he mean by that?
I guess maybe what's our favorite time period that we like to watch or rewatch?
I mean, yeah, like the period that this show is kind of covered, and just the period just prior to that, like 2016 to like 2019, is like one of the all-time greatest runs of any company ever, from like a match quality standpoint, from a creative standpoint, booking standpoint, talent standpoint. There's a lot there.
Yeah, I think I'll call it the Kiss era has been a really great time period. But also I like watching some of the 90s stuff where we watch like the Steiner brothers and a lot of the junior stuff with Liger and a lot of Super Junior stuff that happened throughout the 90s. I think the 90s was a fun time period to go back and watch.
I like the Dark Ages.
You like the Enochiism?
Yeah, it fucking rules. There's a lot of bad stuff, but there's a lot of really great stuff in that period.
And the last question: did you guys see the amazing video of Ospreay going off on Kenny Omega for the cease and desist about his T-shirt?
Nah, I didn't want to get worked.
Yeah, I didn't watch the video, but I did see he had released his own Best Bout Machine shirt, and then yeah, he had received a cease and desist and had to take it down from Pro Wrestling Tees. So.
Work. But it's a good work. I mean, I think he really did release a shirt. I think Kenny really got a cease and desist, and it was all pre-done. Like I think the two of them were like, "All right, I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then we can actually do it, and then we can actually like build a story off of it." But I think these guys, I'm not for any minute under the illusions that this is something that happened that wasn't premeditated.
Yeah. Next question from Fonz170. Honest opinions on Ibushi from here on out. Do you think he retires, or is he so upset with the company that he's just writing out his contract and will jump ship to another promotion when his contract is over?
I would say go back and maybe listen to some of our discourse on this subject over the past few weeks. I don't have much more to add to it. I don't know what's going to happen. We've had nothing but honest discussion about it the whole time it's been unfolding, though. The one thing I will say, I think for sure we see Ibushi wrestle again. Now, whether he wrestles for New Japan or whether he even wrestles at the kind of top level that we're used to seeing him wrestle, those are the big questions. But I mean, hypothetically, let's say if he's really injured, really bad, and he's also on the outs with New Japan, could I see him pulling an Onita and coming back and working a different style, like an old man style or a hardcore style or some sort of something else, so that he can go out there and entertain and fulfill this like need to be in the ring entertaining folks and performing? Yeah, he's gonna wrestle. I just don't know under what context.
Yeah, it's probably going to be him starting up, his 3-sided ring promotion. So
I'll believe that when I see it.
Dark Soldier says, which title would you bring back to NJPW if given the chance?
The WWF World Martial Arts Championship.
I think the U30 title could be something cool to bring back and help promote the youth movement in New Japan.
What about the IWGP Provisional Tag Team Championship?
Why were there provisional tag titles?
Bro. I don't really know. There was like a period where they had a provisional tag team title. Oh, man. No, actually, my real answer would probably be the J Crown. Yeah, bring that shit back.
Yeah,
and that would, if they did that, Homicide would have to be involved because he is the current reigning NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion.
So would you add to that? Would you add newer junior titles to it?
No, we would have to bring back all the original 8 junior titles that made up the J Crown, just like the Infinity Stones. Yeah. But I always think it's funny, the great and illustrious, Les Thornton, fucking Tiger Mask, Jushin Thunder Liger, Danny Hodge, and Homicide, the great NWA junior champions of all time.
Sounds like that. Great list.
Great list. Homicide, dog.
All right, recommended match of the week. So last week for the excursion match, I picked the GHE title match from No Destination 2022, Kojima versus Kano.
Yes, this match was very good, but kind of a slower pace than I anticipated it actually being. I guess I don't know what I expected. It's a Kojima big style main event in 2022, and he clearly still has the fire and drive to do this, and he doesn't look bad, but I also don't think he has the gas tank to go out there and perform at that top level, at that top gear anymore, really.
Yeah.
And but him and Kano, they went out there and they really laid into each other. It was very, very stiff. It was very hard hitting. It was by no means a bad main event. It was a great main event. I'd probably go 4 stars on it. But the first 2/3 of it, I just wasn't really believing it. What kind of turned it around for me was there was a moment where Kano was on the top rope and Kojima hit him with a lariat and put him in a hangman position on the outside, and they started counting him out. He almost got counted out on the outside from there, and that's sort of when things turned up. And I was waiting for Kano to light his kick pad on fire, pull a Joey Janela. He never did it. I don't know why. But yeah, and then the finish. I'm not the biggest Noah guy, so I don't know I've seen Kano's work, but I don't know everything about him. And the finish just happened, and I was like, oh, that's it. Beat this man. So, it's going to be interesting. They've got a big tournament coming up in All Japan, and Yuji Nagata's in it, and then they've got the N1 Victory, and freaking Satoshi Kojima's in that, which is kind of surprising. So I almost thought that they got the title off of him so he could avoid being in that tournament, taking all his losses, but he's going to be in the tournament still, even without the title. But yeah, if you haven't seen this match, I'd highly recommend it. It's a great match. It's not, in my opinion, going to be a contender for excursion match of the year. I don't think it quite hit those levels, but nonetheless, a great, believable, hard-hitting, very stiff and fun, main event for the Big Noah show.
Yeah. Then for a recommended match of the week, you picked the NJPW lockup match from November 24th, 2017, or excuse me, 2007, with Tomohiro Ishii versus Daisuke Sekimoto. And man, this was a hoss match. These guys are going out here, all the lariats, all the chops. Sekimoto was just incredible in this match. And with a guy his size,
you never seen him young either, huh?
No, yeah, young Sekimoto. This guy went out here, did this crazy like suicide dive, and this guy's like super jacked, and he's flying through the ropes with a suicide dive. He was hitting these huge, crazy lariats on Ishii, beautiful suplexes. So these guys were just going back and forth, and it's always interesting seeing like young Ishii as well with the hair, and a lot of the same offense Ishii had with those big lariats. He was going for Brainbuster for his finish, and so yeah, these guys just clevered each other. Very hard hitting, very entertaining. Like I said, Sekimoto was just doing a lot of crazy stuff. He did a frog splash at one point, and so just seeing a guy as jacked as him, just kind of the way he was moving around the ring was just awesome to see. So yeah, this was a really fun match to watch.
What would you go rating wise on that?
I think I'd go like 4.5.
Nice. So that's a pretty big recommend, huh?
Yeah, awesome matchup.
Nice. So next week, it is going to be my week for the excursion match of the week. I actually lost it. What did I recommend? Yeah, I'm recommending the match from Galate, May 18th, 2022. And that match sees the long anticipated matchup where Shima teams up with Shingo Takagi in Galate to take on the team of Ryoichi Kawakami and Kazuma Sakamoto. And that is available for free on NJPWWorld.com. Nice.
Then I have the recommended match of the week pick. We're going to go to G1 Climax 2017, July 17th, from the A block, Hiroshi Tanahashi versus Zack Sabre Jr., the first meeting between these two gentlemen.
Interesting. It's been a while since I've seen that match, so I'm not even because I've seen them wrestle so many times at this point. I'm not even really recalling exactly what happened in that match, so it's probably a good recommend in that case.
Yep, and then these guys are facing off this weekend as well in this year's G1, so just thought it'd be a fun matchup to watch as we build to their match coming up.
Nice.
And that's going to wrap things up for us this week. Next week we'll be back to review more nights of G1 Climax 32. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keepin It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. The network is at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we are facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group, facebook.com/group/Wrestling Squared Circle. On Instagram, we are at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy, just keeping it strong style. You can email me, Jeremy, at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite with Floyd and Austin. The AEW Match Guide Podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. And Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Ichiban.
Thank you for listening to Keepin' It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.
You made it. Here, finally. Checked out of office to check into the sweet views of that place you've always wanted to go. You know the one. It's nice. Even the kids like it.
This place is so cool.
And they never like it.
Mom, can we go to the pool?
Look at that. not even asking for the Wi-Fi. When you're with Amex, it's not if it's going to happen, but when. American Express. Don't live life without it.